Love it.
Right, should we get into it then?
Yeah.
So, quick trip out for us today.
It
Only
was.
about 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
And thanks
Down
for
to-
reaching out, because it's amazing the people that reach out and be like, I had no idea you existed, and it's really good to discover new people, and it's a great space you've got here.
It's all right, like I said, it's warm today. It's 10.4. So I mean, I had an issue last week. My CNC machine was triggering a warning, basically saying if you get something caught in it or you need the machine to die, you hit the big red button and it kills it.
Yeah.
And it was just doing it on its own. Leading up to like the last day on Christmas, it was doing it. I was like, why is this doing this? And I worked out that it was because the workshop was too cold. When I called the tech, he's like, we've no idea what that is. Like, we don't know. And as soon as you say something's wrong in CNC machine, you can just start like writing the zeros on the checkbook.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what the problem is here. And he's like, I don't know what that is either. You're gonna have to try and figure it out. We can send a technician out to you, like £100 an hour, and he lives like 4 hours away.
And
so
he
like,
charges you for the minute he starts his car.
Yeah.
Yeah, been there.
yeah. And I was like, the workshop's quite cold though. That might have something to do with it. And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, well, it was -6 leading up to Christmas. And he was like, sorry, what? And I was like, it was -6.
Postcode, please.
Yeah, he thought I was living in the North Pole. He's like, must be business at Christmas coming up and stuff. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, it might be. He's like, he just started laughing. He couldn't believe it.
Aye.
But there's like pictures on Instagram of like the dog bowls, like frozen solid,
Frozen,
where you come in the morning and it's like, and the only reason I know it now, because I know it used to always be cold. And then you check it on there and you're like, just -6 degrees and your hands are freezing. Like, it's just that.
Dedication, that is.
I mean, nobody else is going to pay the bills,
Exactly.
unfortunately.
No, I know.
Yeah,
It's
so-
the glorious life of being a maker that everyone sees on Instagram.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're getting, like I said, 10.4. This is all right. I can deal with this. Anything north of like 2 degrees Celsius, I'm all right with. And then when you start getting lower than that, like you start having problems with like your lacquers, any oils that you're using, the machines start getting funny. Like it just, we were talking about just before you started there, like the moisture on the machines, like all these things that come in. And then it's the fatigue as well. Like your feet get shot because they're so cold. Like I've got heat, like honestly, you should see the setup I've got. I've got like a heated waistcoat that's got like
You got the power tool battery in
Mate,
it?
I've got the full works. I've got the
That's
full
cool.
works.
Wicked.
And I've even got individually heated socks as well that have got battery packs on them.
That'll be Kate on Amazon tonight. Battery
I've never
pack
heard
socks.
of battery-powered socks.
Yeah, no, they're pretty good. Like you get a little battery about that big, and then it's maybe half an inch thick, and you get each got a little pocket on each sock, and then it's got the heating elements all through it, and you plug them in, and you get like, I don't know, like 3 days worth of battery at them if you're wearing them full time.
How do you wash them?
Well, that's the other thing is they say you get however many hundreds of washes, but I put on a pair of like sports socks underneath them, and then I put them over the top, so then you don't have to wash them like every day because it's like it's
Top
taking
tip.
the hit. Yeah, because otherwise I don't know how long you'd last because they've got like heating elements and stuff. So I mean, it's
I mean, you see it even in underfloor heating in houses, so don't you? The electric stuff, you start getting cold spots when they just burn out. So I can't imagine throwing them round a washing machine's great for them.
nah. I mean, electricity and water don't really mix. Or they do, and that's probably the issue. So
Take battery out.
yeah, well, I think my missus washed it the other day, and I found the battery, and I'm like, "Did you wash it with this in or not?" I was like, "I'm not going to question her because she'll probably cut me if I ask the wrong question." So I just was
Just
like,
accept they got washed. They're in a good place.
"It's right." Well, so I haven't had it on, so I still need to find out if the battery works. But I mean, yeah, the heated one, like you get if you've got it on full whack, it's talking like you get 5 hours out of it. But if you go on at the lowest setting, it's kind of like. It's just having like an extra layer of clothes on. It just kind of just takes the edge off if it's like proper cold,
Nice.
So, but yeah, have a look at them. They're good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's how you do what you do.
Yeah.
Right, so first question. Now, I'm still working out the best way to ask this question because I always ask people, like I'd ask you, who is Maverick Piping? But you'll do what everyone does because makers never really talk about who they are. They'll talk about what the company is.
Okay.
So, who is Geordie first?
I mean, you would have got away with the first question, to be honest, because it all kind of ties in. So the name Maverick, I've never actually seen Top Gun before you ask. Never seen it, and I hear it's really good. There's a
I
point.
watched it the other night. It was wicked.
Is
Yeah, it was
it? The
good,
new
yeah.
one or the old one?
The new one.
The new
So I've
one's
never
very
seen either. So there's a part of me that doesn't want to see it now because then I can still tug on that thread when I need to. But no, the name Maverick, if you check up the dictionary definition, is an individual or independently minded person, which is effectively when you look at everything that I make is all completely identifiable to a brand, which is stemmed from me, It's an individual, independently minded person, which is a double-edged sword. You know, sometimes it's good having been able to be like stubborn enough where you're like, I can do this better. But then also it can be a really long way around something when if you just stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Just go from A to B instead of going through all the alphabet just to get to B and realize, oh, everybody else is right here. I should have just done it that way to start with, you know? So that's kind of the ethos behind how it all kind of came around, was probably out of an arrogance of, I can do this better.
Yeah.
Whether I can or not, that's that's up to the people that buy my stuff.
Yeah.
But that's where the name Maverick came from, and that's why it ties into what the company does and how it does it.
Love it.
So before we get more into it there, though, 'cause I'm always really interested in the arrogance sway. Because is it arrogance, though, or is it self-belief? Because I'm not that convinced that arrogance is a thing unless you're actually crap.
I think the self-belief is probably more the positive side of it. But I'd rather say arrogance and come across as being authentic than saying self-belief and coming across as like a bullshit Instagram influencer. You know, man, you got self-belief, like you can all do it. Because as soon as you start saying that, you're like, I'm out, I don't trust this guy. Like, so I'd rather
What's
take
he hiding?
100%, yeah. I'd rather take the negative side and let everybody else decide, like, oh, actually, okay, you know, he's just a guy that he's making stuff and, you know, pushing through as opposed to being like, something, you know, just kind of like not on about him and I don't know what it is. So I'd rather take the negative side of it and let other people decide than trying to like, you know, like I said, try and be disingenuous and try and like, you know, powder coat it to me or sugar coat, should I say, to try and make it sound like more romantic than what it is.
Properly Scottish, yeah. Just take the negative side of it and ride it out.
Yeah, because you're better to be proved wrong. Like, you're better to say something if other folk to go, no, absolutely not, than you go, no, self-belief, man. They go, that guy's just an arrogant prick, you know? You know. So I'd rather, but I mean, folk might agree with me, but then if they agree with me, then great, then we're both on the same show, so I'm fine with that, you know?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
So where did it all start?
How far back do you want to go?
We can go as far back as you want to go. What is your story?
Well, this was all kind of by accident. So I originally wanted to be an electrician. That was where I kind of wanted to be. When I was in school, I didn't really like school.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, I think it's because see, when you're really academic, like, I'm not an idiot. Like, I'm pretty switched on, but I'm switched on when I need to be switched on at what I'm being switched on at. Yeah. But when you're trying to give me something that I don't want to do, you can't make me do it. Yeah. And you've got things like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm dyslexic, so try to get me to do things like English, and then you've got things like history where you're trying to do a lot of writing and stuff like that. I'm instantly switched off, and I'd rather be like trying to make my mates laugh than you know,
just not engaged, are you?
No, not at all.
There's a whole host of people that are like that. They're just not engaged. You know, I look at my grades, and some of them are wicked good.
Yeah.
If they're not up there, they're through the floor.
Yeah.
They're like, why did you turn up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, completely. And I think, I don't know if it's getting any better. I actually don't know if it is, but I feel like the stuff that I excelled at was never pushed mainstream. Like, I like tech drawing, and I liked woodwork, and I liked all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff that I enjoyed doing and I was good at was like, yeah, you don't really want to be doing woodwork. Like,
We're exactly the same.
You want to do English, you want to do maths, you want to do religious education, and you're like, no, I don't want to do any of that stuff. Like, and I mean, so from the start of school, it was like, I never really had an idea on what direction I wanted to go. But so my mum and dad got divorced probably when I was about 10, so I'd go and spend the weekend with my dad, and I would spend through the week with my mum. But then at the weekends, like, I lived in the country, so it was like shooting, fishing, I'm a piper as well, which is all kind of comes into it. But then I also just make stuff. Like, I would make anything and everything. I'd watch Robot Wars and be like, I'm going to try and make a robot. So I remember like first robot I made was like, it wasn't even a robot, it was a remote control car with a traffic cone on top of it with two stones that would like spin around, just like stuff like that. If I could try and make it, I would. So my dad had like a wood lathe, he had like a shed. And then I would just like make stuff, some legal, some not. We can get into that later on if you're interested. I've got some funny stories there. So I was always like into making stuff. But when I was in school, I didn't even know like engineering was a thing. Yeah. Like, that was never put to me. Like, I didn't know they were like, if you can stick with maths, you're good at maths, you could go on to do X, Y, or Z. Now I'm in that spot, I could be like, oh, like working in F1 and CNC would have been quite good, or doing like product design or something. But it was never put to me that way. I didn't know that was even an avenue. So when I was in school, I was like, do you know what, an electrician would be quite good. I wouldn't mind that. So I like passed all the tests. All I basically had to do was have somebody to say, yeah, we'll take you on as an apprentice. And that was, 2009, 2008, right around the crash.
Yeah.
So everybody, because the country was in recession, nobody was taking anybody on. And I grew up in Lochgilphead, and my mum was like, don't get a job here, because if you get a job here, you'll never leave. I was like, nah, that's fine. Like, I know better. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And she's like, absolutely not. If you're going to do it, at least go to Glasgow. So I was like, right, okay, fine. So did I move to Glasgow at that point? I hadn't moved at that point, but I was contracting people to, like, hopefully employ me. And I think I counted, it was like 250 electricians I went to try and get a job. And I had all the tests. I passed all the maths tests, had everything cleared. All they had to do was say yes, and then that was it. They were like, nah, we're not taking anybody on. So I was like, right, okay, that's not going to happen. But I was still kind of working in the background. And the band that I play in Inveraray District, we were through in Brittany, in France. It wasn't Brittany, sorry, it was Quimper in France, playing at a...
and this is a pipe band?
Pipe band, yeah. And we were playing at this kind of like big festival they have. And
so talk, before you go too far into it, because we've got quite a few American listeners and stuff like that. Americans will probably know it, but certainly a lot of the Europeans. A pipe band's very different from a normal band, though, isn't it? Because you're not just pipers. You've got drums. And you were piping in that.
Piping, yeah.
Right, because it's a full march procession job, isn't it?
Yeah. So pipe bands, by and large, you've got your pipers. And then you've got three different types of drummers. You've got side drummers, tenor drummers, and then you've got a bass drummer, and then you've got one bass drummer, generally speaking, unless you want to go like crazy. But traditionally, it's one bass drummer, and then kind of goes from there, depending on the size of the band and what grade you are.
Yep.
You've got like marching, kind of like parade bands, which don't compete, and they'll go and do like just parades and things like that, and that's what they do. And then you've got competing bands, which they'll still do that kind of thing. But their main focus is competing. So the band I play in is a competing band.
Right.
So the main focus is competing, but you'll still do things like Armistice Day and all that kind of stuff. Or if there's trips abroad, you'll still go and do it. Like we did a tattoo in like 2015, I think it was, in Virginia. So you get invited to these kind of things, and they're great trips as well because you're with all your bandmates and they take care of you, and it's good.
So you were out there. You were out in, it wasn't Brittany, it was
Quimper.
Quimper.
Yeah. So we were in a pub called the Cayley Pub. And I was talking to I think it was my pipe major, Stuart, and I was talking to him like, I'm living in Glasgow, trying to get an electrician's job, can't get it. And he's like, go and talk to that guy. And I was like, who's that? And he goes, that's the director of basically the biggest bagpipe company in the world. And I was like, okay. So I spoke to him, and he's like, and because of the band I played, they hold quite good standing. So I'd never met him, he'd never met me. And I said, is there any chance I'd be able to get a job with you just to to do me until I get to Glasgow, that I can then at least move down there. I have something that's paying the bills, and then I can be a bit more like feet in the ground, try and get a job. And he was like, yeah, okay, this would have been July. She says, all right, come back in September once the season's done. Season finishes in August. She says, come back September, October when the season's done, and then we can talk. So I was like, all right, sweet. So I stayed at home until then, and then went down there after the season, and ended up getting a job there.
Nice.
Worked there for, that would have been 2010. And then I worked there until 2012, June 2012. Which was a bit of a weird time because, I was into making stuff, but it was an industry, inside the piping, I held a decent amount of credibility because I was a piper of a certain level. Right. So they were like, when people came in, like they wanted, plus you can't get me to shut up for love of money. You guys will figure that out. Like if people came into the shop to get like tours or whatever, like I would be the guy that deal with them. And then when I wasn't doing that, I'd then get back onto the lathe and I'd be making small pipes.
Right.
So I was there for 2.5 years. But whilst I was there, I also I invented a piping product that I got patented.
Awesome.
But I couldn't do it there. I mean, I might be incriminating myself here, but who cares? I invented the product there, but I couldn't do anything with it legally because I didn't know the red tape behind inventing a product while you work for a company. Mm-hmm. So I ended up putting the product in my mum's name, and I processed a patent while I was there, and I got the patent granted. So I was like, right, okay, I have an avenue, because the job is fine, but it's a company of, say, 50 people. But between you starting at the bottom and you getting to the top, there's only like 3 layers. Yeah. So it's like worker ant, manager, foreman, owner of the company. So you're like, there's nowhere for me to go here.
Yeah.
Like, and I was taking away like, how much was it? Like 220 quid a week. 60 of that was petrol. 100 of that was my rent. And I'm left with 60 quid before I've even bought shop and I went for a pint.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't live on this. So I was like, right, okay. So I had that business kind of ticking over in the background, but I couldn't do anything with it because in the pipe band world, if anything happens, everybody knows about it.
So you had the patent, but you weren't manufacturing. You weren't doing
Nah.
it. It was just you had the bit of paper to say it was your idea.
Pretty much. And I had the prototype because I had to make the prototype in order to see that the idea would work. And the idea did work. So I was like, right, okay. And that gave me enough confidence to then get the money together to then put the patent through. So then I got granted the patent and I'd already decided at that point that I was like, right, okay, I'm probably going to be getting out of here some stage. But with a product that you haven't released and you don't know if there's going to be any sales for it, you're kind of like, it's a big step.
Yeah.
Like just stepping out and being like, let's do this, you know?
Yeah.
So
Even just to get a patent's quite a big thing because not a lot of people know how to actually do that, or that you have to do it. You know?
it was a pain in the ass. And it turns out that even though I have the patent, I mean, there's like people have come out since with like effectively the exact same idea and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. So what actually does it do?
Well, exactly. And I remember I spoke to my mate, who was the best man at my wedding, the guy who talked about the patent lawyer.
Yeah.
He said like there was just one single, because there was a guy somewhere else in the world, I can't go into too much detail, copied the idea. There's a couple of companies that have done it actually. And he said your patent would have covered you, but you put in one word that you didn't have to be there, and that one word has meant that other people have got access to it. And that's all it was just that one word. And he says if you hadn't put that one word in, you'd have been covered. But because you put that one word in,
That's
like,
mad.
yeah, it was pretty annoying. So,
But then it's like how much money or time do you invest in fighting that? Whether actually you could just go and invest time into doing your own product well.
well, that's kind of it. I mean, the way, I mean, to be honest, the piping community, it's a relative big community, but it's not massive. I mean, if it was £1 million idea, then I might have been a bit more like a bit more fighty for it. But there's only so much money you can make in the piping world, realistically, you know, especially based on one single product.
Yeah.
So the amount of money that you'd make on it was never really going to cover any like shortcoming that was, that was going to be. So
Yeah.
the only way I could get around it,
into a hole, don't you?
yeah, the only way I could get around it would be basically to like out engineer and out advertise other companies, and then just show them, look, this is a better product. Like, I don't know what this guy's doing. Unfortunately, I saw the blueprints for the guy who was the guy in America who, well, no, the other guys that copied it. I saw the blueprint for his design, and I noticed that there was a critical error that when I was developing it, that he never picked up on, but I did when I was testing it.
Right.
And I noticed that in his design. I was like, well, that design's not going to work because
Yeah.
I've already tried that and I know it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tell him that,
No.
Yeah.
but I'd already picked up on it and fixed it. So if you were to take both our products and you were to try and copy them, mine would work and his wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because I'd tested it. And I'm around guys who are good enough that I can give them to and say, try that. And if they go, something's not right here, I can then take it away. I can try it myself. And there's only few people in the world that you can have access to that are good enough that will be able to be like, they can tell you the subtle things that something works and something doesn't. Because a lot of times you can get away with it. And unless you know, then, you know.
Yeah, the average guy that jumps in a high-end sports car is not going to notice if it's tracking that well.
No,
Whereas
exactly.
a professional driver's
Yeah.
gonna, and that kind of harks back to, you know, we're always interested in why makers are where they are and why they're so good at what they do. And it is experience like that allows
Yes.
them to be so highly critical.
Yeah.
Because like, if you weren't a piper, you could look at those. Like, I'll look at your chanters, and you know, I could look at pipes and I'd be like, yep, I could knock that out on a lathe, but it'd be crap. Do you know what I mean? You might as well just blow down a straw. It's
Yeah.
not going to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So having that backside in doing what you're doing is really where the credit lies, isn't it? It's not just the idea.
Yeah.
It's the ability to test it to the nth degree.
I think that's what a lot of it is. I mean, it's because it's like we were saying there earlier. If you've got a problem, you can jump on YouTube and you'll find a way to fix it. You know. But if I've got an issue, there's no way I can fix it. You know, and there's sorry, that's not what I mean. There is a way to fix it, but I need to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, because there's nobody there to help you. And if there is somebody who's close enough to helping you, they're not going to help you because you're trying to take money out of their pocket as much as they're trying to take money out of yours.
Yeah.
So you have to just try and figure these things out because the only other people who are close enough are direct competition. But even then, with like the stuff that I'm doing, there's still nobody that I can like tap into to be like, right, how do I fix this? You sometimes have to go like way far out there into like a completely either different industry, like a completely different market to sometimes find out what the issue you've got is. And sometimes you'll get like an aha moment. You go, oh, okay. And then you take that and then you work backwards to try and hopefully then fix the problem that you've got. Yeah. But it can take a long time to fix something if something goes wrong, you know. It takes
a lot of time.
Yeah.
So this is exactly it. This is exactly what I do in my day job. You know, I design massive special effects rigs and vehicles for films and whatnot, and it's none of them are brand new.
Yeah.
It's just the first time you've seen it on a film set.
Yeah.
It's been done in oil industry, or it's been done in flight simulation, or it's been done somewhere. You know what I mean? You're just repurposing. So you talked a lot about competition, and people seem to be split on it, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, some I don't want to say industries, but some niches within being a maker are highly, highly competitive, more like what you sound like you're talking about there. Whereas certainly Bert, from a ceramics point of view, is very lend a hand, help a hand kind of thing. You know, it's very give and take. So you find the piping community a lot more competitive.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm fortunate because yes, I'm in the industry. There's a lot of people willing to help me out who are in competition, like people who I've met over the years in the piping industry, because my stuff is so different to everybody else's.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we're in the same industry. I mean, you know, we could be car makers, but if you're making Formula One cars and I'm making, you know, three-wheel trucks, you know, or, you know, forklifts or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a good example.
You know, there's no, you know, you're never going to go like, oh, have you seen the wing that you know, that forklift's got? Let's put it on this F1 car. Like, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, we're in the same industry by and large, but our products are so different that even if I had the best-selling product, I'll have the best-selling product in my niche. And if they've got their best-selling product, it's not going to really affect me because, yes, there is a crossover, but there's not like a direct crossover where like a lot of the bagpipe makers have just now. Where if you take like the top 5 in the world, they're all doing effectively exactly the same thing. The only difference between the people who are making loads of money and the people who are scraping by is effectively your marketing.
Yeah.
That's basically
Very
it,
true.
you know? Whereas my marketing's a big part of it, but it's also completely unique. So the kind of product markets itself.
Yeah.
You know, it's my job
Stands
is to
out enough.
Yeah, so I mean the idea is visually that it catches you, but then my job is to make it like the best product so that it doesn't just look, oh, that looks amazing. That when you play it, you go, oh, hang on, this actually might be the best chanter that I've ever actually played. Like you get into that and you go, hang on, these are actually pretty good, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'll take a punt and I'll buy it and see how I get on. Yeah. So that's kind of like something that I've been working on over the years to try and just like refine it. And you get these little, like I said, these little aha moments where you look and you go, oh, like that is something I never thought before. And then you try it and you go, oh, wow, like this is so much better. And then you can just, as you're making batches, you can slowly start to, you know, integrate these things in. So like if you take a chanter, even from like when I first started it, like they were pretty rough, to be honest. But like they say, if you're not embarrassed by your first your first release, then you've left it too late.
It's so true.
So I'd look back at the ones and I go, whoa, hang on, these things are like way off the mark. But then as you even get through the years, you can see the kind of evolution of the chanters. And even if you go back to ones that are say like 3 years old, you can go compared to what's been made now, compared to what's happening 3 years ago, is like completely night and day. But I still don't abandon people. If somebody comes back, and then maybe there'll be like a known issue, and if somebody comes back with that known issue and says this is broken, I'm like, cool, just send it back in, we'll fix it, don't worry about it. In fact, I've got a woman through there who had a chanter from America, and one of the people in her band wanted to buy one of my chanters, and he had a couple of issues that he raised, and they were all legitimate issues. But from when she bought her chanter 4 years ago to now, I was like, those are not an issue anymore. Yeah. And I was like, she's like, I was like, get a hold of your friend, get her to get in touch, send the chanter back to me, and I'll update it as best as I can to what we're making now, and all those problems will be completely done. Yeah. So she sent it back from America, and I've got it sitting there waiting to just, you know, to basically bring it back up to date, because
that's amazing. You don't get that anywhere else, do you?
No, and that's quite special to makers, you know, is your ability to do that, because you couldn't physically. So you could take it back and replace it as a big company, but it would go one, it would go to waste if they even bothered their arse
Yeah.
at all. They would just be like, no, that's the 2013 model, the 2010 model. That was just what it was. That's what you bought. You know, you don't get that update. You know, we've got a 17 plate Mini. You don't phone them and be like, well, the 20 plate Mini's got X, Y, and Z. They don't go, oh, hi, cool, no worries, send your 17 plate back and we'll update it. It's just not a thing, is it?
Well, it was to me. She the problems that she had with it. She wasn't playing it, and I thought, what's the point in having an instrument you're not going to play? If I bring this up to date, she's then going to play it,
right?
And then she's then got enjoyment out of it. So like, why just have it sitting in a cupboard? I could have just said,
what
to
a
her,
good philosophy, though.
You know, and
why is that not a standard practice?
And now that I'll give that chanter back to her, she'll play it. And then when somebody goes, how do you find that? She'll be like, oh, when I first had it, I wasn't happy with X, Y, or Z. He's now done this. Company's great to deal with. And then they go, oh, great. And just off of me taking a couple of hours to make sure that she was happy and that chanter was as good as it can be, like as most up to date, she'll then tell other people in her band and they go, oh, we've dealt with that guy. Apparently he's amazing and his stuff's really good. And then you just need one other person to go, do you know what? I'll buy it. And then that's it covered. And then it's just like, and because the chanters are so identifiable, you know, you can see if you've got 100 people playing, like you've probably seen the background here, like all these ones here are from different companies.
And then you spot yours, it's like, whoa.
You can see the ones at the back, you can, all that are African blackwood or plastic, like they all just blend in. But whereas mine, you can see them a mile away, which is again, good and bad because you're drawing attention to yourself. But, you know, it's easy for people to see them and go, what are they like? Are they any good? What are, you know, is it what people say online true about them or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And if they can go, dealt with them, really good, or even if I can turn them from being like, oh, I had these issues to, no, he took care of it, we're all good, like, great company.
Oh, hi, man,
with.
you can tell, like, I deal with a lot of suppliers in my day job, and I'm adamant you can tell more from a supplier, more from a person by the way they fix a fuck up than there'd not be any issues in the first place. You know, it's not easy, but things going smoothly is all well and good, but you can never really test until it's under pressure.
100%.
Until, you know, I've got an amazing hydraulic supplier that I'll phone up, you know, James, PPK Hydraulics, James, we've had an issue with this ram, or this isn't quite ported right, or this seal's folded inside, because we run things way higher than speeds than you normally would in industry, and he's always helped develop around those problems. And I'll phone him and be like, oh, we've had a seal leak, or we've had a seal folded, and it'll happen once, and usually within 3 or 4 days the ram's back sorted. You know, it's like that. It's as quick as he can physically do it.
And you always go back and you always recommend them, won't you?
Yeah, to the point I'll get in heated arguments and debates with people when they say, oh, we should use such and such. Nope.
But the thing is, to me, because I feel like a bad customer's like a cancer, or maybe not a cancer, but it's like an illness that gets into your business. Because if you've got one person that gets into a band and they've had a bad experience with you, that band isn't going to touch you. That one customer has now affected 30 people. And that's even if you get somebody that's not very vocal. Like, especially if you get somebody and they turn up to band with it and everybody's questioning them, they go, oh, I've just had it, we'll see how we get on. And then they come back a month later and they've gone back into their old chant and go, well, what happened there? Yeah, at the pub, they're like, oh, this happened, that happened. I didn't like this, didn't like that, blah, blah, blah. Then they go, all right, okay, cool. I was actually thinking about getting one, but I'm not going to get one anymore.
Especially in like a band setting, you know, 30 odd people or a meet. You know, you've got how many bands at a meet of 30 people? You could mud your whole name in the industry in one meet if one thing's bad, couldn't you?
It's a compounding effect. I mean, I'll take care of 90% of customers. Sometimes you get people that are just like what we doing here, like, come on, like that. Like if it's a manufacturing defect, I'll always take care of it, 100%. But if you get somebody that's like done something that's like clearly, you know, like they've, I don't like sat on it or something, or they've snapped it. Because there's certain things that you can tell. There's certain failures that happen time and time again, and you know that they're there, and then you'll fix them. But you get one that's just like way off, you know, 2 standard deviations away from what could possibly go wrong. And they go, oh, they were just playing it, and it just fell apart in their hands. You go, so that was never sat on.
Just caught fire.
Oh, yeah. honestly, man, some of the ones. So I had this one the other. I don't want to say too much about it. I had this customer get in touch, and they were like, you know, my daughter's got this chanter. Like they were playing it, and it just, and for some reason, this is always the way it goes. They were just playing it. They've taken really good care of it, and then it just broke. So I was like, right, okay, so send me some pictures and we'll have a look at it. So she sent me the picture of this chanter, and it was like broken into like 6 pieces. Like the bottom had like completely snapped in 2, and it had completely shattered. And I was like, just playing it, it just fell apart in our hands, did it? Like, yeah, I can't believe it. It was amazing. I was like, that is amazing. I was like,
she was just playing it on the plane, and the plane crashed, and it turned to dust. It's like, aye,
yeah,
come on, eh?
Yeah, and I was just like, all right, okay. And I was like, I said, I was like, look, that's okay. I can understand what you're saying, but that's not what's happening. Like, and I explained, I said to them, I said, look, this is how it's happened, and this is why it's happened. And then the person was like, all right, okay, fair enough.
That was good of them.
Yeah,
it was good of them to just be like, yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
I've been shopped.
But I've even had people get in touch. I had a guy, and he said my daughter's chanters, well, one of the tops had a crack in it, and this has probably been a year ago. We've since changed the process, so it's something that doesn't happen anymore. But the top had a crack in it, and he said that he's like, oh, my daughter dropped her chanter at school and got a crack in it, and I looked at it, and it wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
It was a manufacturing defect because the wood had got moisture in it and it split. You can
Right.
tell. And I said to him, I was like, that's not your daughter's fault. That's completely our fault.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay for a new top. Send back the one you've got. I'll take all the hardware off it, replace it, and send it back to you. And the guy was like, really? I was like, yeah. So if you're going to be mad at your daughter, please don't. It's not her fault. Completely on us. We'll take care of it for free.
That'll go a long way as well.
Yeah. And
That'll go a
I
long
think
way.
he came back and bought another chanter for his daughter.
There you go. That,
Nice.
paid,
You know?
that paid for you to...
That's
one
what I'm
extra chanter
yeah.
paid for you to replace that top, didn't it?
Exactly, and it just it takes me an extra couple of hours, but again, like I said, it's a sour customer is an illness,
Yeah.
and I can honestly on my hand from people that I've dealt with directly, probably I think there's maybe been 3 that I've had that have been like where I'm not moving on this, and they've been like and they've kicked off, and I'm just like sorry, whatever, like take your money back, fine. And
But you'd hope that all the good you've done, if they then go and moan up to somebody else,
Yeah.
they're like, no, I've dealt with him and he was spot on.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I try to do my best, but there is a line where you have to just go no.
business, isn't it?
It's business at the end of the day. It's not a charity. I've
You
still
need
got
to pay
to
your electricity bills. You
got
need
to feed
pay
my
for the
dog the same as everybody else. Try
Yeah.
to take food out of your mouth, eh?
But it's a great, and it's something that I hope the sort of exposure and the light we're bringing to makers that people pick up is that you can't have these conversations with bigger companies because they are, for a lot of the case, obviously it's not everybody. I'm not like total sun shines out the maker's arse kind of thing. I do think that it does. I think they're brilliant. But like, you can't do that with a big company because they're just buying the product in.
Yeah.
There's so many transactions that happen from the product getting designed or manufactured to you getting it to your hands.
Yeah.
That just isn't a viable thing to do.
Yeah.
Even a lot of these small white label brands, they might replace the product and do a really good job of customer service, but they're still wearing that hit.
Yeah.
And they're not able to feed it back. And the most interesting thing about what you've said there is your ability to immediately feed it back into your process.
Yeah.
Like, that's cracked for the inside out. It's moisture in the wood. I now know that is on my job list to fix that.
Yeah.
Whereas, pardon me, even if you looked at, look at the bike industry, high performance industry, we spoke to Andy about this, the bigger side of the industry where it is mass manufacture, it will take at least, Trek, it's 2023 now, Trek will be already working on, say, 2024 or 2025 models. So if you find a default this time, it could be 2026 until that's fixed.
Yep.
Whereas you're immediately able to say the next chanter, the next run of chanters, that will be fixed.
And sometimes it can take a wee while. For instance, I used to treat the tops in a certain way, and you'd maybe get like a 5% failure rate of them coming back. But then if it's the same failure, you would just replace the top.
Yeah.
But I was still having to replace it. I was still taking time out of, I'm still using resources, my time, the wood, any materials, the shipping, because you have to, take care of the shipping on top. So there is an expense that goes along with it. So there's some things that will hang on for longer than what you want them to because you just don't have a solution. Because again, you can't just Google it. You can't just go.
You need to find a solution.
You need to find the
work through it.
solution because you're so niche inside a niche. You need to figure that solution out.
Yeah.
And when you do find the solution, then you're like, I've now got this. And then from that point, you can then roll that out over all the products that you've got. And then that issue is now done with until you've then got the next issue that you need to worry about, whatever that is. And ideally, you just keep, every time an issue comes up, you've just got to find some way of out-engineering it, so that you get to a point where you've got a product that you're like, it's as good as you can get it. So it's a never-ending process. I mean, I'm sure if I looked at the chanters like 3 years ago, I'd be like, oh, these are about as good as they can get. And then now I'm looking at them and going, well, these are about as good as they can get. But then I know...
3 years' time, it'll be the same, won't it?
Yeah,
You're
well, I hope
always learning.
so. Yeah.
Always learning.
Yeah.
There must also be a world where you fix said issue at hand and that raises another issue, that chain reaction.
Yeah, because there's only so much I can figure out on my own. because I'm just one person. You know, I'm not the person who's maybe, you know, going to school with it in their school bag, or I'm not the person who's playing it for 10 hours a day because, you know, I don't know, maybe they can't work or whatever. You know, they want to just sit and play their chanter all the time. I'm not that guy. But if you're doing that and then you give me feedback on something that's happened, then I'm like, cool, that's information I can now take and then I can then use for the next product, you know, the next iteration of whatever I'm doing. And if I can fix it immediately, then I can. Otherwise, there's a point where you go, I know it's there, I'll fix it when it's coming up in the future.
Yeah.
So I find that the customers, because I try and ask people for feedback, and some people give you feedback, and some people give you like feedback that's just not very useful. But it doesn't matter. That's for me to decide whether it's useful or not. If it's bothered you enough, then you come back and tell me. But then otherwise, I think some people are kind of scared to give you feedback because I don't think people are very good at taking feedback.
No,
you know, people, there's a difference between feedback and criticism. And I want feedback, but people, I think, they feel like they're giving criticism.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't really care. Just give me the information.
Your products can't be as good as they are without that. Without that, just sort of circular feedback, that feeding back into you. They just couldn't be what they are.
But it's just a competition with yourself because, I mean, you can copy other companies, but you'll never do what that company does better than that company.
Yeah.
You know? So as soon as you start trying to replicate another business, you can replicate a business, but you can't replicate an idea. Because if they're further ahead from you, they're going to have better resources, they're going to have more money, that they'll beat you every time at your own game, at their own game, if that's, you know, if you're trying to replicate them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took me even like starting making the very first chanters that came off the batch. I didn't copy any other chanters that were out there. I basically got the length and then was like, right, okay, let's start from scratch. Didn't copy any holes and just started from there. So it took a long time. This is talking about the arrogance and going A to B and going A, C, D, E, F, G and coming all the way around and being like, because by the time I'd got a product that I was happy with, they were pretty close to what was already there, but there was differences that were significantly different to other chanters. But I got there on my own as opposed to just copying somebody and going, yeah, that'll do. You know, they're the market leaders. We'll just take that and copy it and we'll just hope for the best. And I've had other people as well. I had a guy, I wanted him to make up a jig for finger holing. And he was like, I was like, yeah, blah, blah. And I was asking him to make this jig up. And he said, I don't even know why you bother doing what you're doing. Everybody just copies the 1960s Hardy chanter. He says that's the best chanter that's ever been made. So why would you change anything from that? And I was like, that's the exact reason. Right there is the exact reason why I'm doing something different. Because everybody's just copying the same thing and doing the same thing. Maverick, independently minded person, you know. Because what is it? Why would I just go and copy that? Okay, even if I did copy it, the product itself is different enough that it will stand out.
Yep.
But then if I'm going to go to all that effort, why not make it its own product instead of just ripping somebody else off, you know? Even if it was 60 years ago, you know, so.
This is it.
Again, arrogance of thinking I know better. I might be wrong, but do you know what? It's what it is. What it is.
So far.
It's working so far, yeah.
So we got to the patent. Then you decided to kick it.
Yep.
And go yourself.
Yep.
Did you just go full hog straight away?
Nah, so again, it went back to a pub. And
all happens in the pub.
All happens in the pub. So I already had this idea in the background, and I got talking to another pipe maker based in Glasgow. So the first one was based down in Kilmarnock, and I was living in Glasgow. And the second guy was like, look, if you want to come and work for me, he knew about my idea because I told him, he says, look, we'll pay you more, and it's like literally half an hour drive instead of like 50.
Right.
And I was like, okay, more pay, closer. And I was like, all right, sounds good. So I ended up working there. And I was there for 2 years, I think it was. And it wasn't really working out, to be honest.
Right.
Like the reason why I went there and the reason why, and what I ended up doing were not on the same level at all. So I got kind of bitter about that. So in my head, because I was expecting one thing and got another.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, this is not the route I want to go down. So I was like, right, okay. So then I had Drone Dry running in the background. So I was making money off of that. I was sponsoring events and I was doing things with it.
Drone Dry was the original.
Drone Dry was the idea, of the moisture control system. So it was ticking over in the background. This would have been 2014. 2014. I left there June 2012. So basically 2 years. That was when I was kind of running it. And then I was just like, man, I'm so unhappy here. Like I was really unhappy. Like, do you know what the silly things is as well, right? You see, when you're listening to music, see if you're a musician and you're getting forced to listen to music that you hate, man, it makes your day so much longer.
Does it?
Oh man,
I can understand that.
We had Radio 1 on, so the two guys I was working with, they would have the music on, but they'd never even listen to it. Like, it was just noise to them in the background.
Yeah.
But I'd be listening to it and I'd be like, that's the 5th time today I've heard Katy Perry. Or like, that is like the 2nd time I've heard like whatever. And I'm like, it was eating me alive. And I'm like rock music or something, so I'd go over and switch it over, and then they would go back, turn it back. I'm like, right, okay.
Yeah.
And that would, because it's like Chinese water torture. You're doing a job that you hate, with listening to music that you hate, and you're going, this is just not worth it. This is not worth it.
Yeah.
And even when you speak to the guys, you're like, man, this is the 5th time I've heard Katy Perry today. And you're like, oh, is it? I wasn't even listening.
Aye.
It's like, what's that?
Like, oh,
What's the point in having the radio?
This is testing music, human. So I was like, right, okay, I'm not doing this. And I spoke to my mum, and I was like, Mum, I'm so unhappy doing what I'm doing here. And then she's like, what do you need to do to like get you up and running? And I was like, I'm needing a workshop. I need to get this, and that. And she's like, I'll bankroll you if this means that you're going to get out here and do something you want to do.
Good old mums,
Good old mum, yeah. So I was like, right, okay. So in November 2014, I think it would have been, I got this place and sourced a lathe, got some wood. And the chanter idea, I hadn't even made a practice chanter up until leaving this company. I knew how to do it.
Yes.
Because I'd been making small pipes before, but I'd never actually been part of the process on making one.
Right.
So I was like, okay. So I went in and I had my notice in and was like, done here. Catch you later. Thanks very much. And I came in here the night of, I think it was a Thursday. And I came in here the night of and was like, all right, let's start a business. Let's try and make some money. And I remember having the block of wood there. It was blue. And the way that it was cut is it comes in like 3 to 1 length. So it'd be like 300 mil wide and like 900 long. So I was like, right, let's get writing about this. So I like cut a section off. But I didn't even think about cutting it with a grain. Well, I was originally going to cut it with a grain, but the guy who was with me at the time was like, no, if you cut it that way, you just cut the length like that and you can turn it and it will save you having to cut everything lengthways. And I was like, good thinking, Batman. So I cut this length off and I turned a chanter out it and I took it in my hands and I went like that and the thing bent like it was like a piece of PVC pipe and my heart completely sank. I was like,
you got the grain the wrong way.
But I didn't even think at the time. I was like, I've completely fucked this. Like I've literally just quit my job. Like I've got this workshop, got the lathe, like got all the stuff.
Gone into it full steam ahead.
Literally, I just was like trousers down, just jumped straight in there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have completely fucked this. And then I took it home with me. Like if I'm really struggling with something, I'll like take it home and just like stare at it for a bit. Just to try and like Mr. Miyagi it, try and figure some way out of like try to figure my way out of a hole. And I was looking and I was like, hang on a minute. And I was like, and I went back. Did I come back in that night? I think I might have come back in that night.
Right.
And I cut a section off lengthways, did the same thing again, tried it solid. And I was like, that's all it was, is it cut the wrong way. The idea was put in my head to cut it that way. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because then, you cut them to 300 mil lengths anyway. Because at the time, the largest one was like 270. So you're like, 50 mil off each end, you're good to go. Yeah. So it made sense. But then I was like, now I know why I wanted to cut it lengthways, but I should have just went with my first instinct. And then from that point, I was like, right, okay.
Told your pal never to come in again. Don't come back.
Something like that, yeah. So I was like, right, okay. So from that point, it kind of like progressed. And it was, in the beginning, it was tough. There was a few points where it was a bit like, it looked like it probably wasn't gonna work out. But then after a couple of years, I kind of was like, right, okay, this is because there's no other option for me. I left school, wanted to be an electrician, that never worked. I definitely wasn't going to go back to making pipes for a bagpipe maker. Like that was an absolute no-go. So it was either like, I have to make this work. This needs to work. And then from that point on, it just kind of got to what it is just now.
I think it takes a few years to find your feet and like what works, what doesn't work, and just your setup, everything. It just takes time. It's just like, can you wait that long?
But it's all
Can you write it out?
Yeah. That's effectively it. But it's also getting a customer base as well, because it was something that was so new and so different. It was you want just try to convince people to, to jump on the next fad.
Yeah.
I don't want people just buying it because they thought it looked cool. I want people to buy it because it's the best practice chanter that you can buy. Because to me, that's what I'm striving to get.
Yeah.
Because that's my business is practice chanters. A lot of bagpipe makers, they use the practice chanter to get your foot in the door, and then that chanter's in your hand for 2 years, and then when you want to go and buy a set of pipes, name's on the top. They go, oh, we'll just go back
this
there.
is what I've been using.
Yeah.
Why would I not go and buy that?
You pay £100 now to then spend £1,500 down the line. So, I mean, the practice chanter is 6.5 a dozen. It really doesn't make any difference to companies whether the chanters are good or not. And again, they'll just copy a design that's 60 years old, engrave it, throw a name on it, and then be like, sell it. And people just, oh, yeah, great, that sounds good. Yeah. And a lot of it is marketing as well. Like, when you become, I've noticed this as well, like, if I'm in an industry that I don't know anything about, you can look at it with naivete and go, I wonder if that's as good as what people say it is, or, oh, I've heard this, or I've heard that, blah, blah, blah. But see, when you get into that where you're the person on the other side and you become an expert in an industry and you know what is good and what's bullshit, and then you see what other people come back with. Like, I'm on forums and stuff. Like, I'll just look, and it'd be interesting to see what other people say about different products.
Yeah.
And you go, you've got zero idea. Like, if you say to somebody, you give people 5 sets of pipes, only the top couple of percent would be able to go, that's a good set of pipes. That's a nice set of pipe, 100%. Like, you could take all the makers and play them, and most folk would go, they would, they'll just read whatever's on the pamphlet and go, oh, they've got great harmonic sounds, or they sound great, or this, and that. And you go, you've got zero idea. If you could take the worst player in the world and give them the best set of pipes, or you could take the worst set of pipes in the world and give them to the best player, and you'd listen to the best player, and you'd go, that's a good set of pipes, aren't they? When they were like 50 quid on Amazon. Yeah. Not saying that they're, anybody listening to this, do not buy anything on Amazon. Yeah. Please don't. Even if you don't buy my stuff,
buy it for Amazon.
Go to a reputable dealer. Go somewhere, because the stuff is just firewood.
Yeah.
Like the Pakistani pipes. If it's like 100 quid for a full set of pipes, or less than probably £50 for a practice chanter, stay clear. Because it's just a waste. It's a complete waste of money, because people do it all the time. They'll buy a practice chanter and they go, I got it for 22 quid on Amazon. You go, okay, right, we're gonna have to start again here.
Surely that would put them off, though. Surely you'd start practicing on something like that that's just crap, and it's like,
but you don't know if it's good.
Well,
like, I can hear it. It's the same. You give somebody a violin, you hear a kid scraping away on a violin, you go, whew, this is going to be a tough couple of years. But then the kid gets through it and they get patched. You go, oh, that actually sounds quite good. But is it the violin? And again, a bad workman always brings its tools, and you don't want to be that person, do you?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is true.
So
you mentioned there, when you started it, and there was times it didn't look like it was going to work.
Yeah.
How a lot of people that listen to this are other makers or people starting that journey. How did you tackle that?
It was just being a bit more conscious of what was going on. Like, because it's easy just to start. It's easy just to put your head in the sand and hope that things will work out. But then there's a point where you have to sit down and go, right, what is going on here? Why is this not working? Like, this should work. Everything about it was adding up. It should work, and it wasn't. And I couldn't. I mean, there were certain things I don't want to get into on the podcast, but there was certain things that I had no control over that I needed to have control over.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons things didn't go well. I then got control of those things, and then that's when I was able to then go, okay, let's flip this.
Right.
And then push it in the direction that it really needed to go. But I think for me, there was no alternative.
Yeah.
It was, if this didn't work, I'm there going, right, I finished high school, but I didn't have a uni degree. Okay, I can run like CNC machines or whatever else, but probably not enough to a point where I'd be able to walk into like a CNC shop or whatever and go,
Yeah, because you'll run it your way.
Yeah.
You'll run it your way, and running into a shop, they'll want to see reputable brands, reputable names, they'll want to see Fanuc training, they'll want to see all the proper training behind it, whereas you've just done it your way.
Yeah.
So, maybe that is what a lot of people come from. It's like, this has to work.
Yeah, that was basically it. There's no other option. And like I said, it's a tough spot to be in, because there is literally no other way. It's the closest thing you get to somebody putting a gun to your head and being like, you need to make this work, and if you don't, then what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And I've had it with customers where you'll come across an issue, like a big issue, and they go, you need to figure this out because, you know, time's ticking and you need to figure this out now. And you're like, there's no other option. You just need to figure it out.
Yeah.
You
I've
know?
got late nights coming up.
That's pretty much it, yeah. I mean, there was one, I remember one, so I do some like, kind of like freelance, if you like, work for a guy who I make like firearms components for, a company down in London. And they're a pretty big company. I won't say them on here because they don't know that the stuff's made in a glorified shed in a place in Glasgow. So I'll just
You got a minted email footer that makes it all look the part.
yeah, pretty much. So so I was dealing with this guy making these parts, and one of the parts basically looked like a spark plug.
Right.
Made out of nickel silver. Which nickel silver, if anybody's not familiar with it, it's kind of like a kind of gold coloured brass. Well, brass is, well, I say not gold. It's more like kind of hard to explain. It's a kind of yellow silver. Is the best way to describe it. And I hired some guy to help me out because he'd given me this order for more money than I'd ever seen in my life, and I was like, wow, like. So I hired somebody to help me, and he ended up and I was kind of training him up before this order started. So the order came in, and then he had to leave. He had some stuff that he had to take care of, and he wasn't coming back. And I was like, right, cool, this one's for me then. So I was like grafting my way for like months and months with this stuff, to a point where I actually had a seizure in the workshop.
No way.
Yeah, I pushed it too hard, and had a seizure when I was running the CNC machine and just like keeled over. They took my driving license for 18 months.
No way.
Yeah, it was really bad.
For goodness
So
sake.
it was the business that was tough at that point, because I was already under the gun at that point, and then I had this seizure, and that set things back even further. So this company down in London were pushing him, and because they were pushing him, he was pushing me. So I was getting phone calls from him like 3 times a day, like one at 9 being like, how's the stuff? Again at like 12 being like, oh, how's the stuff doing? Again at like 6, oh, how are we getting on with the stuff? And you're going
That
like,
pressure's not good for
it was
you.
brutal. Nah, I felt terrible. I was in, not even exaggerating, it would have been like 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night.
Yep.
And then you'd get home, you'd probably have a takeaway because you don't have time to cook any
So
dinner.
you're not fueling properly.
Nah.
No.
Nah,
You
and
do
then-
this because you enjoy it. Like,
this
that
was,
sort of thing just...
yeah. And I was expecting to have help. So, I mean, and then when that
Yeah.
help was taken away, I was like, okay, that just left me in a bit of a spot. So I was pushing it. And again, I was like, there's no other option. I can't just go, okay, at the weekend, mate, I'll do it this way. I'll just keep going until I literally keeled over.
Yeah.
And then when I lost my driving license, that was a real pain. For like 18 months, I was having to like pick up my materials by hand or get people to run me around. That was tough. And then when we got to the end of the contract, I was making the final pieces, and these little spark plug things. So there's a thread on the outside and there's a hole drilled in the middle, and then there was a slit had to be cut in the middle of them. So I was down to like the final days, and he was like, this stuff needs to be done for Friday. Like, you've been taking months on this. I understand you had the seizure, but the cut off Friday, and that's it. And this is to finish. This is to get everyone finished.
Yep.
So I had to put this slit in, and again, you need a milling machine to do that. I don't have a milling machine. So what I basically did is I basically turned my CNC lathe into a CNC milling machine.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having the workpiece rotate and then the tool cut it, I put the tool in the chuck, and then I programmed the CNC machine to cut in reverse so that it could do this slit.
I'm stressing out just listening to it.
These things you have to figure out.
Yeah.
So I was cutting these things, and once it would finally cut the section, when the saw came out, the pieces of metal would like ping, and they would catch the edge of the teeth, and they would take a nick out the top of these what looked like spark plugs, and then they were knackered. That was it, because I took this chunk at the top, and I was like, right, okay, this idea isn't working. So I was like, right, okay, I need to try and figure another way around it. So I did it in reverse, and I tried cutting it with a 1mm end mill again, but did it backwards with a CNC machine. Tried doing it that way. That didn't work. As soon as you broke that last membrane on the other side, it'd go ding. And so the hole should have been like perfectly spherical, and instead it was like this.
Yeah.
And that's no use. Like these guys are no joke. They are like, the
real deal.
Real deal. You can't give them anything except perfection. And this was like a Friday morning, and I was like, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how. I really have no idea how to fix this. And I was standing at the machine, just staring at it, going, like, Again, you can't go on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can't talk to anybody. I spoke to a few people and they were like, no idea. So I spoke to one company, a company that I've done work with before, who owns a CNC company. And I asked them, I was like, would you be able to like mill this out for me? And they were like, yeah, nah, we don't have time for that. I was like, okay, can you send me to somebody who could? And he basically needed it done like super quick.
Yep.
So he sent me to his pal, and his pal was like, yeah, we can do it for you. I was like, all right, how much? And the quote he gave me worked out to be £300 per hour. And I'm like, you're taking the piss. And he's like, that's the price. And I was like, nah, absolutely not. So then I came back in on Saturday morning, and I was just like, I can't figure this out. I don't know what's going on. And then I started to think. So I've got a background in like long range like shooting, like do like kilometer competitions and stuff.
Right. Okay.
And one of the things that you have to do when you're loading your own ammunition is when you get the cases. Basically, what happens is when the charge goes off, the case expands to fill the chamber.
Yep.
And then that's what basically it creates a plug effectively and lets the pressure go that way, which pushes your projectile and all your powder and everything at the front. But when that happens enough times, the metal gets work hardened. So then the work hardened turns it brittle. So you take a paper clip, you do it enough times, it starts out bending, then it snaps in two. It's work hardening. So I was like, hang on a minute, I wonder if this is getting work hardened in the machine when I'm turning it. So I got the blowtorch out, just started to anneal it, quenched it, and was like, let's see what this does. Put it back in the machine, saw in, perfect. And that was the problem fixed.
Nice.
Because what had happened was with the thread on the outside, it was causing the metal to twist. And when as long as the cylinder, as long as the circle was whole, there wasn't any
The
deviation.
tension's all equal the whole way through.
So as soon as you cut that, it just did this. But as soon as you put the blowtorch on it, it then allowed
Normalise everything
normalize
inside.
everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that saved the problem with about 6 hours to spare. So I was like, you're gonna have to come by at like 6 tonight instead of this. This would have been, in fact, this was a Saturday night about 11:30, and I was standing at the machine going, I can't figure this out. And then I was like, I'm gonna try annealing it, and that's what it was. So I just had to anneal everything, got it done, got it out to the way. So that was a bad one. That was a really bad one because there was so much leading up to it, and then you're like, all right, okay, if I can figure that out, there's like, I'll figure more. I'll figure, you know, how bad can things be? There's ways of figuring everything out on your own. If you can't find it on YouTube, you just have to.
It's quite impressive though, isn't it? Like I think people look at makers as a small cottage industry. People just, and they are. They're people just getting it done. Because if you went to Formula One or aerospace, there's a metallurgy department that deals with that.
Yeah.
With guys they've got letters after the name that look like a Wi-Fi password.
Yeah.
With members, fellowships, institution, charters to figure out what you figured out with. I used to shoot guns really far.
Yeah.
That was, but that's literally what it came down to, was just like, hang on a minute, let's see, there must be something here, and that's boiled it down to just putting a bit of heat in it. So
Amazing. Well done for getting it done.
yeah, it was an absolute panic. I'm not
Were you
gonna
happy
lie.
with it though in the end?
Oh yeah, he was really happy. Yeah, it was all good. So the guy's son actually came in to help out because I'd lost my guy, and his son, it was fantastic. Like his son was really good. It's tough getting people, by the way. It's tough getting people to get what you see and then getting them to do it to the same way that you do.
Yes.
And he was great. Like you show him once, if he wasn't sure on it, he'd come back, he'd ask you, and then you'd either tell him how to fix it, and he'd fix it, and then you never had to speak to him again. You'd get back to the end of the day and the stuff was perfect. He was great.
So I employ a couple of other engineers and like design engineers, and that's one thing I find the hardest is when someone doesn't know how to do something to ask. I'm an open book. You've seen me on calls, you know, because I've probably fucked it up at some point.
Yep.
So ask me, rather than you fuck it up, I've fucked it up. Let me show you how I fixed it and how I done it right.
Yep.
And that's kind of always been my ethos. But finding people that are happy to ask, that's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's tough as well because I'm a people's person. I like dealing with people, but then when it comes to being like my business and money, then I think I can be a bit more not scary, but like unapproachable. And I think some people have picked up on that, where I've had people work for me and they'll make a mistake, and it's now set, instead of setting me back 3 minutes, it's now setting me back 3 hours. And like they've just been like maybe a bit too scared to say it, because instead of me being like your best pal and talking you through it, I'm a bit more like matter of fact, like this is what needs to be done, this is how you do it, blah blah blah. But if there is an issue, come and find me, and instead they'll just go, it's fine, I'll just, you know. And then by that time, it's too expensive, it's too late, you know.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just don't think they really know what they're looking at or for, you know. I mean, my cousin, he's like, do you want to do a swap day? Like, he works through in Fife and he makes chutney, and it's a pretty big company now.
Right.
And he's like, do you want to do like a day? You come and work for me, I'll work for you.
Oh, cool.
I was like, yeah, sounds good. I'll give you that by the way. We'll sort it out with you at some point. But he came through and I got him to like polish like the soles. Some here, like they just got on the bottom of the chanters.
Yeah.
And the worst person I've ever met. Like horrific. Like what would take me, like, I don't know, like I could do like 30 chanters in a day if I had to, and it took him like an entire day to do 3 individual pieces. So I would do 90 and he would do 3, and even then I had to go back and fix them, because he'd look and he'd be like, look how good that is, and I'm like, you can't be serious. Like you can't be serious that you think that looks good.
I think he's just impressed with himself. He's managed to do it something.
I think that's probably what it was, but that was just putting a polish onto a piece of metal.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing really integral about it. It was just like what looks good. And he was like, look at that. And I'm like, you just don't get this, man, do you? Like you just do not get it.
Surface level knowledge, they don't. But then again, it's like, of course he won't have the knowledge that you've got on it. Of course he won't have the understanding, and ultimately, of course, he won't have the care that you've got about it. Same as if you go make chutney with him.
Yeah.
He's not going to care how good.
Yeah, like dirty fingernails getting around there, like mixing it with my finger.
Yeah.
Like,
Sorry, I was on the lathe this morning.
Yeah.
it's not, man, I don't care.
You're just not going to have that, is it? And it's something that I think a lot of makers maybe do struggle with. Certainly, as they get to that size, like you've had projects. I don't know. Have you always got somebody in with you, or is it just
not at the moment? I mean, I don't have anybody at the moment, and my wife sometimes comes and helps out doing like admin work in the office. There's 2 routes you can go down. Effectively, like the position I'm in. I'm in a very fortunate position where I can automate a lot of what I can do to an extent. The part where it gets it looking amazing, you'll never be able to automate that.
Yeah.
But there's certain things, like for instance, I still drill all the holes by hand. There's still a lot of hand work that needs to be done on the hand lathe. But there's other things that can be automated. And you go, okay, do I bring somebody on and pay them £1,500 a month, have to train them up, hope that they're good enough that then are going to be able to replicate what I need them to replicate, effectively put them through almost an apprenticeship? Or do I do things like, do I get a milling machine that replaces me from finger holing them, which will then save me 4 hours a week, which is then maybe an extra 2 chanters, which then, you know, well then means I can then get a bigger workshop, you know, and then I can get another CNC machine that is more automated that I can then turn all my metal components with.
Yeah.
And because at the moment that machine does, you know, it runs wood, metal, plastic, and it's a lot of time consuming, changing tools, and it's not fully automated. I have to be there to control a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it's these things that I'm like, okay, let's say it takes me 2.5. If everything's going great and there's nothing goes wrong, I can make like 14 chanters in a week. That's like everything going fine. But if I can get that up to say 20 chanters in a week, those extra 6 would pay for somebody else's wages, you know, over no problem at all.
Yeah.
Or give me a bigger premises, or pay for another machine. But then gives me enough of a financial safety blanket that if I want to bring somebody on, I'm not being like, please work. I need you to work. Because if you don't, I've got 2 years down the drain and you're knackered. I can bring somebody on and be like, right, we'll see where you're at. We'll put you on the easy thing. I just need you to push the button on this machine, and I need you to check those measurements. And if they're the same, we're good. And then if they are good enough, I can maybe make, like, for instance, like an exam for them. And I go, right, if you pass this exam on this part that I need you to do, I'll give you an extra 50p an hour or £1 an hour. And then you can gradually get somebody through. And then even if they get to a certain point where you're like, okay, you're good enough up to here, but I can't trust you from this point on, there's still somewhere for them to be where they're able to still get paid and still make money, as opposed to me hoping that they can end up like me in 3 years and they don't. And now I'm forking out 25 grand a year for somebody where I'm like, this is never going to work.
Yeah.
Because you're still doing everything that needs your eye, that needs your touch to it, where, as you say, a lot of it can be automated. Those machines, obviously they have service costs. Like we're not stupid to that. They have service costs. Stuff does go down on them, but having that security of the machine will be able to do the job. allows you to maybe push people up through the rank, and just and also it takes the stress off it, because let's be like, taking people on is immensely stressful.
I've seen it with guys in my industry. Yeah, they say it's the biggest stress. Is like, it's your biggest overhead as people, and it's your biggest stress as people as well, because you can have people who care too much about the staff, which I feel like I'd be in that bucket, and they end up stressing themselves out because they care too much about everybody, and then they're trying to juggle too many plates to keep things going. Like, they're not very good at cutting fat, so they'll maybe keep people on that they're like, I need, I'll keep this person on because it's for their best interest as opposed to it's for the company's best interest. Yeah. So I'd rather get to a point where at the moment everything in the workshop needs to have somebody who knows what they're doing it, everything, and I don't have any gaps where I could be like, unless it's like cleaning and making tea. I mean, how much tea and how much cleaning can you do?
How many chanters do you need to sell to justify you not making your own tea? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what it all comes down to, doesn't it?
Yep.
Certainly from a maker and small business aspect, it all comes down to how many of X do I need to sell to make Y a viable decision. Yeah. That's what we look at. We wanted to do a documentary, we wanted to do the podcast. It was like, how much do we need to either save here, or how many books do we need to sell in the next X months to afford this kit to do this next venture? And that's what it all comes down to. Yeah, and it's difficult, man. It is difficult.
It's you also. I'm at a stage now where, and it's been this way for a while, where there's so much work that I have to put stuff on the back burner where I don't have the time to get to it. For instance, like plastic practice chanters, they're easy to make. You can make 50 of them in a day probably. I just don't have time, because if I'm making plastic chanters, I'm not making wooden chanters. And the waiting list for a practice chanter at the moment is like 2 months. Right. For me to get around to that point where I can get that to you. But then I'm like, well, okay, if I had a machine in the background that can make plastic chanters, then that's money, that can be running all the time. But then you go, well, I look at this place and go, well, this isn't big enough to get a fully automated CNC machine, so I now need to get a new premises.
What's the knock-on of that?
So then I now need to get a new premises. Like, how much extra is that going to cost me? And then so I'm like, okay, I get the new premises, I get the CNC machine. Now I'm down X amount a month. Now I need to be doing this, and that in order to. But then it's one of those things. It's like, I mean, I took a pretty rough route getting in, like, getting everything and not making a single product, and then just drop myself and being like, cool, let's make some money. Yeah. So I mean, at least I'm at a point now where people are needing my services and requesting them, and I'm like, I don't have enough resources to give you that in the time that you need it or whatever. So then I have to just go, okay, there needs to be this is the next part where you're going outside your comfort zone to then push things through, to then push the company through. Because at the end of the day, being a business owner, as much as I love doing this, you don't want to be 60 years old, being the only one there and being like, once I'm done, this is gone. Or, something happens, I don't know, maybe a partner gets ill, or, maybe you want to do something where you're like, if you've got kids or whatever, or something happens that you don't need to be there. You don't want to be like, I'm sorry, I can't, I've got to go into work. I'd rather be able to, at the moment, I'm quite fortunate. I can go, like, if I need to take time, I'll do it. But I'd rather things are still going in the background than if I'm gone, this place makes no money. Like, I had a jury citation yesterday. Yeah. 3rd time, by the way. Have you guys ever done jury duty?
Yeah. I've had requested, but I've never
3 times
I had 3 times, and at the time I was on a contract down in London, working down there, full time down there. I had to come up to Edinburgh 3 times. And I sat the last one I'd sat there for like 2-3 hours, and they're like, all right, we don't need you.
Yep.
I'm like, well, I can't go, like, I'm obviously self-employed, like, I can't go back and work now.
Yep, no, exactly, yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, the letter says they'll pay you what you'd have lost in a day. But as a self-employed person, 1, good luck proving that. Yeah. And 2, it's capped at like 90 quid or 100 quid or something like that. And you're like, never even covered half my train on the way up.
No, totally. I got one through, literally yesterday. And for my 3rd one. And I was like, you're kidding me. And it's time like that you go, I could probably get it off, but then I've also kind of like that morbid curiosity, like where I like listening to like true crime shows and stuff. So I'm like, give me a good juicy one.
It's like you're phoning every night. You're like, oh, hopefully I get in, because it was for the High Court, I got
the High Court as well, yeah.
In case, hopefully I get in for something good. I'm like, do you know, we've got a launch in X weeks. You can't have that. Yeah.
I did get on. I actually was the foreman for the first one I was in for a guy that got stabbed. And but it was like, it was starting to get juicy as well. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And then there was
Worth it for the day.
I was buzzing
Good
for
wee
it.
day out.
Yeah, it was great. I was loving it. It was so good. And then there was like halfway through, a piece of evidence came out that was just like completely like blew everything out the water. So then we got called for recess, and they came back and they were like, yeah, they've settled, done. Catch us later. Have a good one. So we were like, oh, what? I didn't even get the rest of it because it was starting to get juicy. There was like the 999 call and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is getting good. I was sitting there trying to be like all professional, when like, it's okay, we've got this, guys. And then so he called away for like the crap sunblessed sandwiches, and then they were like, we're done here, by the way, they've settled. And we're like, oh, for fuck's sake, really? I was hoping for something really good, like some, but yeah.
You pulled me to work for half a day. I've
that
not
was-
even got to shout guilty.
That was a Thursday. We'd been in there the full week, and we got all the way through, and then they were like, there's still one more case tomorrow on the Friday, so we'll need you to come back in.
Was it a full week?
Yeah, so we were there on the Thursday, and then instead of just going, oh, you guys are done, they were like, no, we've got juries for tomorrow. On my way up to the courthouse, the people, because you've been with the rest of the people all week, so you get quite friendly with folk, and they were already on their way out, and they were like, yeah, they don't need us. And they were like, so why would you, like, what, could you not have told us this an hour ago before I got the train into town and walked a mile to get here? And they were just like, yeah, you could have done the same. And I was like, oh, okay, great, well, thanks for that. So that was a complete waste of time.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
Thanks.
so yeah, but just things like that get in the way, that you don't get paid for. You don't get paid for that if you're, well, not enough to.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it covers expenses and they get you a crap sandwich.
Yeah.
So do you? Not many makers have actually I've talked about that. When they're not here or in the future. Do you view Maverick as a legacy thing? Is it something that you would want someone to take on? I don't know if you've got kids, like kids to take on, or someone to buy onto, or how do you see that working? Because a lot of makers, I think, can fall foul of that, where I say fall foul as if it's a bad thing. It's absolutely not a bad thing because it's so attached to their name. Where, unfortunately, if they were to pass, some of the most amazing products that you'll ever see also pass.
Yep.
It's a lot of the reason why we do what we do, because if people buy from these, there's more chance that my real passion in We Are Makers, where Kate loves to tell the stories, my coming into it and my investment into it is so that the skills don't die.
Yeah.
That's what I'm all about. I just don't want to see the skills die, because if they do, you look at BAE contract in Glasgow there, they're having to set up a whole new college to reteach people how to build boats. They would have just been apprenticeships and kids that were probably already working on the boatyards if that had happened, if that contract came through 20 years ago.
Yep.
But now that industry has not only died, but the generation that worked there are either too old to work or have passed.
Yep.
The skills, the majority of the skill set is gone.
YouTube, mate. Just need to get on YouTube.
YouTube.
How do you make a boat?
Big boat welding. And that's kind of it. And so it was interesting when you mentioned there, what's next for it. Is it something that you see?
I mean, it's not something I think that far off ahead in terms of like the legacy. But again, I've got no other option. So if I'm going to make it until I'm ready to retire, whatever age that will be, I want to have it as a business as opposed to just me here on my own. Yeah. So whether that means if I've got kids and they take it over or whatever, if they do, then great. If not, if they're not interested in it, then fine. But I want to be able to get to a point where if I've got a small team who are well paid, that even if I'm only responsible for the last 10% of what goes out the door, then I'm still getting 90% of my week back, where I can either use it for business stuff or whatever. And then if I'm not there, it's not a big deal. Things can still tick over. And then, that's the goal anyway, because I think it's a lot more pressure. I mean, there was a guy came in, what was he doing? He came to pick up a chanter for his daughter, I think it was. And he was a plasterer. And he's like, I went self-employed so that I could spend more time with my kids. And I'm 60, and my daughter's like, I've hardly seen you. Yeah. He's like, I ended up just working so much more, thinking, if I work more now, I'll have more time in the future. But unless you put stuff in place to cover that, then it doesn't get any better. I've noticed that last few years. You'll get more time back. I'll make it faster, or I'll make it. It's like, but you unless you actively do something to try and cover that, then you're always busy. You're always working. You're always doing stuff.
It's very true.
And it's exactly like you said with the investment in the machinery to help you be able to do that. If you just constantly kept cracking on doing what you're doing and doing a really good job of, say, you know, the CNC lathe, which is partially automated. But then if you're to invest in like bar feed on it, say you got a bar feed on it, which for those who don't know, it feeds from a metal aspect, it feeds the metal in, and the lathe just parts it off, changes all the tools itself. That's like, I'm going in this morning for a couple of hours to get it running.
Yeah, you could run that all night and it'll come back.
Yep. And of course there's always been a view that, oh, well, we're relying too heavily on that stuff. It's not got the handcrafted aspect. I'm not a believer of that view. I think there's certain products that, yes, you absolutely are. But at the end of the day, especially for your product, you're still doing all the design. You're still doing all the programming. That just happens to be cutting the flesh off, which is
well, I mean, that
grunt work.
Yeah, I mean, for like all the metal works, like even just like, like just these mouthpieces, they all get turned on the CNC machine, but they turn up as just stainless steel bar.
Yep.
And then I have to machine them on the machine. I can't do that by hand. You can't hand turn stainless steel.
Of course not.
You know, so like things like that are automated. But it's the difference between me at the moment. If I take a day, I could probably make, I don't know, 30 of these in a day. Whereas if I've got a fully automated machine, I could probably make 100. You know, so then that saved me a lot of time. You know, that could be 6 months worth of stuff. Maybe 6 months worth of stuff instead of
just batch it. Just batch a bunch of them. So you look at that. That's, for those listening, you're looking at 1 centimeter, 10 millimeter by 80 millimeter, 76 millimeter ish.
Yep.
So sort of 3 inch by just under ½ inch.
Yep.
Metal stock comes in a 6 meter bar. It can just get fired through a bar feed, and that could
go.
just be knocking it off.
And again, if I've got somebody there, I don't need them to be me. All my brains are in the computer. If I just need somebody to measure them as they're coming off, then that's fine. I can be doing something else. I could be roughing wood for the next batch, or I could be starting to sand or polish the pieces of parts that are coming off. So then you've got 2 of yous there. Or even better, you'd have the bar feed running, you'd have somebody sanding and polishing, and then me starting a new batch. Then you've got 3 things going for the sake of 2 people. So you're getting way more done, and it means their job's safer. It means that the company's safer because of the amount of money that the machine will be making, as well as what they're doing on top, which then means that you're more efficient, which means you can get more products out, which means you can get more money in. It's just a safer aspect. Because my wife at the moment, she keeps saying like, you need to hire someone. You need to hire somebody. I'm like, it's not the right time. I know, but you have to trust me. I'm at a fortunate point. It's not like I own a cafe. I'm not buying a robot to be like, you need somebody behind that counter to be like, how do you want your coffee? What do you like? You know, if it's just me in a cafe and there's a queue out the door, folk will just walk elsewhere. But whereas if I've got a fully automated coffee machine sitting there and somebody wants a coffee, they put a pound in and push go. Like if for things like that, where there's, the hand finishing aspect's always going to be there, like the other pieces of metalwork or plastic. If I can have somebody else on that you don't need my special touch, then fine. And if I'm only needed for the last 10%, so when the stuff's going out the door, it's still as good as if I was doing it. And if there's anything not as good as, I can say that's not good enough, that's going back in.
Well, this is it. So long as it's not... It's...
Sacrificing quality is what you don't want to be doing.
Yes, you need to make sure the quality stays there. And this conversation's kind of veering more into the industrial engineering aspect of, Maverick. And I don't want that to take away from the fact that you absolutely are still a maker. Kate and I wouldn't have been here if we hadn't, vet's a strong word, but hadn't vetted your work and seen that you are a hands-on maker and we're in a space that you do. But what I think people shouldn't take from this that we're talking about, and to be very clear, should not take away from this, that we're talking about machines doing certain things, is that then allows you, as long as it's still coming out to your quality, it's still your design, it's still something that's come directly from you,
in-house,
it's still hand finished by you, it's 100%. Still in-house, it's still creating local jobs, because that's where you ultimately want to be, the machine's in place to create more local jobs. But what it's also doing is opening the door for you to explore other things, like, oh, guys, you be getting in touch with us a year, hey, Kate and Jack, got a couple of machines in, I'm now actually experimenting with making full bagpipes because I've created time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. It's the time that I'm trying to make, because there's so many things that people are like, are you going to make pipe channels? Are you going to make bagpipes? Are you going to make small pipes? And I'm like, I haven't even made plastic channels because I don't have the time. Whereas
exactly my point.
If I can automate plastic channels, Who cares about plastic channels? Right? If I can automate them into a machine, that then gives me more time, so then I can then work on making a small pipes or working on pipe chanters, things that other people want, you know, that just frees my time up, that I can then, you know,
a lower bar for entry to your products. There's a plastic chanter that's automated. It's still your design. It's still got your eyes looking over it, and it's still your quality.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, it's still yours, but it's creating a much lower bar for entry for people. And I think Bert talked about it a bit. You know, one of the things he really wanted to do, I'm sure it was Bert, was make a bigger kiln so you could fire more pots at once and just be a little bit more efficient. And I'm always very conscious of, there's craft where it's one at a time, off. But then you look at Marchment as well, who are very much craft. It's like, it is one off chair at a time, but they make jigs to make it better. Yeah. And I think there's a disconnect with that. There's very much no, that's automated and that's maker. And they can be one and the same. Yeah. And you know, you're probably one of the first people we've spoke to where it's so apparent that it's one and the same. Yeah. You know, even Wilco's doing, you know, you look at Wilco's shop, motorbike builder, who's got a very similar shop to you, but he's doing one off. It's not a repeatable product. And I just want to be like super, super clear about that delineation, that they're not different from a maker. Yeah. It is just a different style of making. And it's just as worth as, you know, hand stitching or hand embroidering or saddle making one, you know?
Because I mean, how far do you boil it back? Do you go, well, I'm not going to sharpen my tools with an electric tool sharpener because you're using, or I'm not going to use a sewing machine. I'm just going to stand there and I'm going to sew a saddle by hand. Like, at what point do you go, right, I'm going to use machinery to help me as much as I can to make a better product? You know, I mean, you could go back to whittling away with those things. You see the guys like the bit of hazel and you're kicking your pedal to keep it going. I mean, you could if that's what you really want to boil it back to, but a chanter's going to cost you 10 grand. Yeah. You know, it's like,
there's always going to be that guy that's like, oh, well, you know, he buys his steel stock in. I go up to the mountain and pull the ore myself.
Do you know
exactly.
What I mean? Like,
let's be sensible about this. Yeah. It's still a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Food needs to go on the table. Yep. And as long as you're looking at it in that respect of, I want to build, why wouldn't you? Yeah. Do you know, why would you not? Yep. So that's probably one of the interesting things I'm taking from this, is that it is that what the machinery gives you is that ability to expand. I'm effectively buying back time. Yeah, you know, and actually, it's one thing you can't buy, but as soon as you talk it in that context, you're like, shit, I can. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's effectively it. So, I mean, that's the route I'll go for. And then when I can, it's safer for me to bring people on as well. Because if I'm able to double the turnover in the company on my own, then that's a big safety net for me to be able, like, I can take you on, and I don't have to worry about the business going under. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then I can also bring people on quicker. You'll also be a much better boss if you've got that safety net behind you.
100%.
Ultimately, anyone can say, oh, I'm stress-free. No, you're not. Like, there will be a point where when you're employing people, it is mega stressful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good, man. And so what would that look like? One thing we've not talked about, obviously you said your mum was wicked good and bankrolled you to get started. But how did scaling it to this machinery get here? You know, it's...
So if it started out, initially it was the hand lathe, and then I've got the old girl at the back there, which is like a 1960s Triumph, which is like an engineering lathe, but all manual. So I'd use that for doing anything like your facing cuts, for fitting ferrules, and for drilling the holes through. And once you got that stage done, the reed seating as well. So that's the little hole that gets cut in the top so that you can put the reed in it. Because the hole that goes through the middle is 4 mil, but then that needs to get opened out. And on the inside of a chanter, there's 4 different holes that go in the inside of a chanter to get it to the shape that it needs to be to get the right sound. And then from that point, it would then go over to this lathe here, and then it would get then hand turned, and then it would get sanded. It would get everything to put on it, you know, the sanding sealers, the lacquers, all that kind of stuff. It would then get finger holed. You'd then have to go back onto the lathe at the back, and then you'd have to spend an entire day effectively to make, I don't know, enough pieces of metal for the chanter, or the mouthpieces. So you'd have to make the plastic mouthpieces, you'd have to make the soles, and you'd have to make the ferrules, and that would take you 2 days. And they would be pretty good. You'll be there or thereabouts, but it's a slow process that needs to be done. So when you first started out, I was probably able to make like 4 chanters a week.
Right.
And they were pretty rough. Like they were okay, but compared to now, if you see the comparison, you wouldn't even think it was the same company making them.
Yeah.
Right.
But now, so from that point, I thought things need to be quicker because the company wasn't making enough money to cover basically everything. You're selling 4 chanters a week, and they were like 75 pounds, I think, at the time. So you'd be like 200 quid a week, and your rent's 500 quid at the, and you're like, hang on a minute, and I've not even paid myself wage yet.
Really easy maths, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't work out. You're never gonna last long. You're never gonna last long on that. So you're like, right, okay, there needs to be some way of trying to speed things up. So I ended up getting this machine, which after getting that machine also meant that I was doing stuff for that shooting company, which effectively that one contract pretty much paid for that machine.
Yeah.
Pretty much all in one go.
Nice.
So that opened things up. But then by that, I could then program like the mouthpieces, plastic mouthpieces, metal mouthpieces, all the ferrules, soles, and I was able to then add on the upgraded soles, which I mean they're an extra. Metal mouthpieces and soles, so they come standard with plastic and lower profile. And then I can make them, and they're £25 per part. Mm-hmm. So even if you buy a chanter at say 130, I think it's the basic version, you can then add on an extra £50 just for the 2 extra pieces. Mm-hmm. But I can then make them on the machine. So you're then the value of that product, where the main guts of it has now gone up by nearly 50%, just for the sake of an extra couple of pieces that you want to upgrade.
Yeah.
You could sell them as standard, but the business plan for me is that start with the cheapest that you can, and then you add on how much you want to spend.
Yeah. The minimal viable
way.
product.
Exactly, because I know the Americans, most of my business, in fact, if I see this week, I mean, it's mostly worldwide. I mean, this here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of 14 this week are going to America.
Wow.
And the rest are to UK. But
I love the Americans. So just,
But the Americans are a lot more flashy when it comes to like the upgrades.
Yeah.
Right, they'll get everything. They seem to. I don't know whether it's maybe like a higher wage, or whether they just are like, you know what, if I'm going to buy once, cry once, I'll just get everything that I want, and I'll get it done in one hit.
Yeah.
So I mean, the basic version you can pay 130, and you get the chanter, and it's all the all the goodness. But if that's all you want for your kid, and that's what you can afford, then you can buy that. But then if you want to add a case, if you want to add the upgrades, that £130 chanter can end up costing you best part of 250.
Yeah.
Once you've added everything on. And if that's what you want to do, then great, I'm not going to stop you, that's fine. Because some people have said to me, they're like, why don't you sell them with a case? I'm like, but not everybody wants a case.
Yeah.
If you want a case, you buy the case. But if I'm selling it with a case for 130 and then I put a case on, it's now 160. If your budget's 150, then you've just been priced out for something that you might not even need. Mm-hmm. Like if you have a pipe case, a lot of people. Exactly. Yeah. So I just feel like you can cover most bases, and some people will still say it's too expensive. And I go, well, come in and see how it's made, and then or see one in real life, and then go, okay, 130 quid for that's actually quite reasonable.
I think it's wild.
Have you ever done any like almost like a small doc on how you make it? Like,
I actually haven't. No.
You really should. I think that would make a huge
consider it.
difference.
There's a guy got in touch with me on Instagram, and he's like his missus bought him a chanter a couple of years ago, I think it was. And he reached out and said, he's down in the Borders, I think. And he's like, I would love to come up and do a documentary of the business and just like film you and how you're doing things. And he's a photographer, and he does like really nice stuff. So we have been in talks to do something. Unfortunately, I think he's a part-time ambulance. I don't know if he's a driver or medic, but sometimes we'll set something in and he'll go, I can't, like, you'll do it months in advance, and he'll go, I can't do it. I've got shifts this weekend. So I ran into him at a Celtic Connections gig a few weeks ago, and I didn't even know him. I'd never met him in my life, and I put up on my Instagram that I was at a gig, and he was like, "Oh, you at the gig?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we went and had a beer, and we started talking, and so I'm trying to tie something in with him so that people can get an idea on, like.
I think that's what's so important. It's like, actually experiencing how it's made, because that's where people can see the worth in it. You know what I mean?
It's communicating the worth of the brand. You're absolutely right, Kate. It's communicating the worth of the brand and what goes into it.
Yeah.
Because, like, when you said 130 there, I was like, I almost had to question you twice on it. But it's like, You got a drill hanging on the wall that's 130 quid for a drill like that. Do you know what I mean? Never mind the CNC lathe behind this. You know, it's like when people, and it's what we tried
Tools
to
are
do with the
expensive.
documentary, you know, show what people have to invest into it, and, you know, even the rent of the place. Like, it's about making that connection between, yes, this is X, but A, B, C, D, E, F through to Y had to go into making X. And when you add all them up, we need to do this amount of X just to make it viable.
When I was making my furniture, you've got the wood, then you've got the laminate, then you've got all the tools to finish it by hand, and then there's so many
CNC
things you
machine,
need to make that product the
laminate
best
press,
it can be. And you're just like, where does it stop?
I mean, I'm quite fortunate because I can look. I mean, for instance, I can take that order list, and people tell me they're like, "You need to put your prices up. They're too cheap. But you can get a gauge on whether it's too cheap or not by how many extras people put on.
See, so that's interesting because that's not something we've come across yet. As people offering extras.
It's quite a good strategy to do, you know, if you can add
it feels
extras.
like a good strategy.
Oh, because like if I'm looking at that there, like all the people who have taken the absolute basic and not gone for any out of 14, there's two people have gone for the basic. Every single other person have gone for. In fact, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people have gone for the full booner, which is, you know, your kind of 250 to 300 pounds. And then there's other people in between. But that gives you an idea, you know, so only 2 out of 14 have gone, like, I'm going to go for the bottom. But the majority, if you were to add up and take an average, you could see where the pin sits. And I suppose ideally what I would do is I would have the pin sitting in the middle of the range. Yeah. So I would go, okay, let's say the average value is 150, but most people are sitting at 130. I can go, right, well, I need to put on £20 to get that average up to the 150 so that it kind of levels out, so that there are as many people above the premium line as there is below it, and then there's that in between. Obviously you'll get extreme people who are like, we'll pay £1,000 for a chanter, but then you've got people that'll go, I'm only going to pay 100, and you price out the people who can't afford it. But then you go, well, how many folk are you pricing out for the sake of the people who are willing to upgrade?
But then that's where your plastic chanters and the additional machinery comes in, because you're like, oh well, I might be pricing them out of the upgradable original piece. But we also offer the 180, whatever that is, plastic one.
Exactly, you know? Because if I'm only able to make 5 chanters a week, I'd have to charge them 3 times the amount. So a chanter would be like £500, you know, as opposed to, you know, 150. And then you're really pricing people out at that point if you're doing everything by hand. But then again, how far back do you want to go? You want to go back, you know, like the guy whittling away with a little hand still, you know.
But you know, going back to the machinery thing and you building your name and you building your brand, hiya pal, and you building your brand, having that machinery then allows you to offer that 100% handcrafted version of it, that you now have time to do one of them a month.
Yeah, you could say that to somebody, you go, I'll completely make this for you, completely by hand for £800, and somebody,
and
you
I'll
know,
go back to basics where I started. It'll be,
because you can get time to do that. Because at the moment you can't, you know, you don't have the time to do that, because if I'm spending time to do that, there's another 14 or 13 people going, where's my stuff? I ordered this, you know, 6 weeks ago and it's still not here, and you go, well, you know, there's only so far you can spread yourself before, you know,
and you can very easily fall foul to that. You know, a lot of people, I look at the bicycle industry, and Andy's got a great business model. He doesn't really fall into this because he's got really, really good manufacturing partners. But some hand-built frame guys, you know, I think at one point, Ricky Feather, who's wicked good. I've never met him personally, just know he's a very, very good bike builder. I know people that do know him personally, say he's brilliant.
Is these push bikes or...
push bikes, like road bikes.
Nice.
And I think he was like 2-year, 3-year waiting list was the rumour. So take away the Chinese whispers and it's maybe 18 months to 2 years. People don't really want to wait for that. And you do wonder how many customers then went elsewhere because of that. Great for smaller builders building their way up, but kind of possibly damaging to his reputation. So having that diversity within, I say diversity within your business as if it's some big entity. For those that aren't watching the video, it's not. It's I
think people think that it's bigger than what it is. I think because you see
the
exposure on like Facebook, on Instagram, that they think it's like, you know, people will message, and if you ever call up, it's always me you'll talk to. If it's on an email, it's always me. And folk will be like, oh, I spoke to Geordie on the phone. He said to say this or that. And you're like, it's the same. Like,
it's me.
I'll tie in with it. And I mean,
how many Geordies work there?
Well, I know, it's like Newcastle. But I think a lot of people think that it's a bigger entity than what it is. And when you give them timelines, I think they maybe a bit more appreciative on like how small the company actually is. You know, when you go, it's going to take 8 weeks. Some folk are like, but then other folk are like, oh, okay, all right, it's a bit longer than I thought or whatever, as opposed to, I'll have it with you tomorrow. Because it's that way. Imagine you're like buying a car and you're like, it's up for, let's say, 1,200 quid. And you go, I'll give you 1,000. And they go, okay. You'd be like, fuck.
Yeah.
How low could I have gone there before they'd have said yes? Could you have gone 8 and they'd have said 9, you saved yourself 100 quid? Whereas if they'd gone, you go, I'll give you 1,000 for it. And they go, nah, like it needs to be, it needs to be, 1,100. And you go, I'll give you 1,000 cash though. And they go, I don't know. I find I need another 1,000 cash. You'll go, what? Yes, I just saved myself 200 quid. But if you just went, yep, cool, you'd be like, so there is a part where you go, how much of this is legitimate and how much of it is like, they're just sitting on stock and they're giving you the I think Etsy is kind of getting bad for people input. In fact, I was watching one of your other podcasts, your boy that makes the rings, the wooden, the wooden
gold.
That's one, and he was saying that it used to be people like him selling stuff that they had made, and now you go on and it's people like him selling stuff from basically like importing it from China and then selling it on. And
Make no mistake, Etsy used to be the marketplace for small makers.
Yep.
It is now a marketplace with very few genuine makers on it.
It's interesting. I mean, I got married.
To speak to somebody. Sorry, it'd be interesting to speak to somebody at Etsy to see what, because they'll be making more money with people doing 100%. That. Of course they will be. But have they lost their values? Do they want it to go back to that? I don't know. I think
if you're somebody looking on Etsy, it's hard to tell what is handcrafted and what's not, because it's easy to look at something and go, that looks handcrafted.
I can spot it from a mile away, but the average customer might not be able to do that.
And a lot of it will just come down to price point as well. I mean, like that bit of wood I showed you through there, I got that on Etsy from a guy in Ukraine who was selling it. I was like, sweet, I'll take that. And
but you'll know how to look for those people.
Well, I did.
Because you're a maker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I don't often buy stuff on Etsy. I know my wife bought a ring box on Etsy, and it looked quite nice. And then as soon as I got it in, I was looking at the hinges and stuff and was like, this is just crap. Like, this isn't handmade at all or whatever. Like, she never told me how much she spent on it, but I mean, anything short of probably for making that, let's say 50 quid, 75 quid maybe, for you to take it, the walnut, drill it out, jig it up, do all your stuff, put your inlining in it. If that takes you 2 hours at 50 quid an hour, fitting in your materials, okay, that probably works out about right. But if you're like 15 quid, you go, who's making that for 15 pounds? That's not some guy sitting in their shed like this and going, I'm going to make 100 of these boxes, and I'm going to sell them on Etsy. It's like, it's probably not the case at all, is it?
And even from a handcrafted thing aside, it's an exploitative thing. It's like, there's always going to be a place for things that aren't made one-off by hand. There's always going to be a place for that. But what I don't think, in fact, what there should not be a place for is exploitative work measures. Yeah. Where some kids probably knocked that out for 30 pence. Yeah. And he's probably done 100 of them that day for that 30 pence.
I think the kind of sacredness of Etsy is a bit sad because Amazon's rife for it. You go on YouTube and it's like, they're trying to get you to do the fulfilled by Amazon and the drop shit, and they tell you how to do it. And the principle is, and I don't think a lot of people understand how the process works, like in terms of the drop shipping. And now Etsy's kind of just being like the hipsters drop shipping.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it's basically turning into be. Where what used to be people being like, "I've made this. Would you like to buy it?" And being like, "Yes, I'll buy that." It's somebody going, "I'm selling this. Are you interested in it?" But then it also gives people a jaded view on how much stuff really costs to make.
Yes, that's the big thing.
Kate, you're probably better qualified to talk about this than I when you were doing your furniture.
Yeah, I did a show. You go to these shows and you show your wares and whatnot. Yeah. I won't say what show it was, but I was in between two other stalls that were made abroad. Yeah. Like they were selling stuff that was made abroad, and I had someone come to me and say, "Oh, where did you import that from?" I was like, "It literally says handmade by me on the wall." Yeah. Like, and I had to explain, and they were like, "Oh, okay, I didn't quite understand." And I'm like,
or even if you're 200 and they're 100 and they're 100, they'll be like, why are you twice as expensive? Yes. And you're like,
and they'll go next door and buy.
Kate's in the middle there with plasters all over her hand, and the person next to her's got their nails done. It's
and it's that kind of thing. It's a marketing thing as well, though, because they can have this, and and you've put up handmade by Kate, But then if they've just got like, you know, they can say it's handmade, but it might not be by you. They
Yeah.
don't. It could be handmade by some guy sitting on a floor in Pakistan.
Yeah.
You know, okay, he's made it, but it's only cost him $5 because this guy's imported it and he's selling it to you for 100. But you know, but it's cost you 150 to make it, or 125, and you're lucky if you get 75 quid over and above before you've even paid for your stand. You know, if you know all the stuff that goes in over and above, it's, you know, it's
Or even paying yourself
that
out of it.
really, like, that show just showed me like how what's the word, people aren't connected to the handmadeness of these things.
Well,
Do you know, I think in many ways that show might have been, like, we talked about doing a book or something for a long time, but that show might have been one of the key catalysts to all of this We Are Maker stuff.
Yeah.
just it's because the guy a few down from me, Stevie Neal, he does metal work and he does furniture and things like that, and he's always running into people with pricing issues because he does custom stuff. And he'll, you know, for instance, he'll go in and he'll make a table for someone, and they'll say, how much that cost, and he'll be like $3,500, and they'll be like, what? Like you can get effectively the same thing in like IKEA for you know 200, and they'll be like, well then buy it from IKEA. Like, what do you want me to do? It's like, you want me to custom make this with like steel, you want me to powder coat it, you want me to order the wood in, treat it, do everything, custom make it for you. And you know, how long does it take? But then if you boil it down to people, there's 2 points, right? You can either boil it down, which you've got no right to boil anything down. The price is what the price is. You know, the price is there for a reason. I've not just pulled the price out from mid-air and gone, I'm 600 quid, you know. You've looked at it and gone, okay, how much does this company need to make per hour in order to be sustainable? So you're like, okay, let's say the company needs to make 40 quid an hour just to keep the lights on when you encounter everything. So you go, okay, I'll charge 50 so that if I'm running at full peak with nothing going on, I'll make £10 per hour profit. So then all going well, I've then got more money left over that
And
if
on a Friday I can buy a can of juice. You know,
exactly.
that kind of
Or if the machine breaks down and I need to pay $2,000 to fix it, or if something happens that you're like for instance, there was an electrical surge with the lathe that happened, and the landlords were just like, don't care. And luckily, this one was disconnected, but that one got fried. And I was like, oh my God. So I ended up having to replace the unit in it. Fortunately enough, I could find one secondhand. For the new one, it was like 700. Just for the control unit. And I found one refurbished for secondhand for like £200 and spent a morning fitting it myself. But then that morning it takes me to fit. That's the time I could have made 2 chanters. So that's 2 customers that are sitting there go, well, where's my stuff? And I go, sorry, I'm having to fix this lathe. And then I'm having to, I mean, that's my wages getting wasted. That's my time getting wasted on that. But I need to have it. I can't go without it, because then otherwise there's nothing happening. So these things that happen, whereas if you're just some guy in a computer going, oh, these ring boxes look nice in Alibaba, I'll order 100 of them, and then I'll just engrave them with whatever you want to make it look like it's got that hand finish aspect, and I'll sell them to you for 15. And then so I'm making 5 quid, and all I'm doing is going like this, press and go, and then posting it out.
So when something is actually handmade and someone's trying to sell it, they're like, no, I'm not going with that. I'm going for that, because they don't see. You don't see all the stuff that goes in behind it. And you can see how companies make money, especially if you're able to make stuff, you know, in China in bulk, and you see how much, for instance, like, you know, like phone covers, for instance, you get a phone cover made, and you wonder, like, how much did that cost? Like, how much did that, you're paying, like, the mouse, I've got a mouse cover on my phone at the moment. And by the way, Mouse, I dealt with them. They're a fantastic company. You're really, really good for a big company, really good customer service. But you're charging like 50 quid for a case. And you're like, how much is that? How much is that case? Well, you maybe like 5 quid. You're getting like 100,000 units made at a time. It's probably 5, you know, like maybe a 5, you get into the country for like maybe 6 quid all in. And then you're like, and then you're selling it to me for £46 markup, and then you're like, right, okay, where's, you know, it's there's money, but
which, by the way, like, if they are paying £5 or £6, but they are still giving everyone fair wages, and they are just doing it sheer, throwing loads of money at market and making sure they can get their quantities so high that they can afford to do that, and the factory on the other end is doing it for a fair price, not getting beaten down, and equally that factory is then making sure that they're paying their staff right and they're in good condition. No problem with it.
I think
but how do you track every single step of
you
that?
can't though, unless you're like a limited not limited company, like public traded. Like, look what happened to Boohoo. Boohoo went through all that because they found out Primark as well. I mean, they've been getting shit for years. You know, where somebody can go in and find the supply and be like, yeah, this T-shirt that you're paying £1.99 for. Folk like, yeah, that seems normal. You're like, really? £1.99 for a T-shirt? You think that's normal? And then when you actually boil it down, it's, you know, some sweatshop in Malaysia, you know, and they're getting paid, you know, £5 a day to sleep in the premises to then get put through. And then you're like, but I think it's one of those things that people are like, you know, hear no evil, see no evil kind of thing. They're like, I'm quite happy to get this t-shirt for $1.99 as long as I don't have to be faced with what's really going on.
Yeah.
You know, it's that part in the background. But then, and because it's cheap, you're more likely to put your head in the sand. But when it's expensive, people start asking questions. Why? Yeah. Why is this £200?
Yeah. How weird's that, eh?
Yeah.
The fact that when it's cheap, you don't ask questions. So
things are changing though in the fashion
things
industry.
Things are changing.
There's
fashion
things
industry is
happening.
getting a lot of heat for it at the moment, and it's the best thing for it. So make it very clear, I am by no means qualified to talk about this. So, like, the greenwashing's a thing, but why is that sort of handmade washing not a thing? You know, in the, it's handmade. No, it isn't. Like, greenwashing, you can say anything's equal now.
Yeah.
You can pretty much,
if you go deep enough in, you can say, like, yeah, what constitutes as being green? You know, yeah.
And I think that needs to be a bigger conversation worldwide. As I say, I'm not the qualified person to have that conversation. I'm a moron when it comes to stuff like that. But it is a conversation that I think needs to happen. Yeah. And it kind of harks back to Kate asking, you know, have you ever done any documentary stuff, and why we try and encourage people to do it. And you'll see Wilco Linder, 19th Built, posting a lot more about him building stuff now. And we were kind of
pushing him to do it.
And
now he's doing his YouTube shorts.
I text him most days. Much to Kate's annoyance, because she's like, what's he saying? I'm like, he's my pal now.
Swiped him.
Yeah, exactly. Just to kind of keep pushing what he's doing, and I'd encourage you to do the same. I'd encourage any maker to do the same. Like, and it's difficult because that is, like, social media management is also a job.
Yeah.
On top of every other job that you have in the business.
Yeah.
But by not even doing it just for your own benefit, by showing people what goes into it, because if you standing in this workshop and hearing that they're 130 quid starting price they're not two sentences that should run next to each other.
Yeah.
But
you probably wouldn't have even seen one in real life. Like, have you seen?
No, I've just
parts of them kicking about.
I've got one finished if you want to see it next door.
Yeah, we'll grab one.
I'll show you that, yeah. Because you can, it's a different, I mean, those ones are old. I mean, that's just one that's a couple of years older than those ones. But I'll show you what they're like when they're I made a mistake on an order last week. So there's one sitting there on there. In fact, there's two there. There's a pink one and a red one, and you'll get to see what they really look like in real life.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But there's like encouraging people, going back to that point, to encourage you and to encourage any other maker to just get videos out there, get pictures out there.
I don't know if I saw on your website, but there was no picture of you, and your name wasn't on there either. And I was like, you're missing a trick here.
You did say
you
that,
need to put a picture and a little bit more about you on your website, because that's where I go to.
Yeah.
Like, who's the person behind this? I know what he does, but who is he?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm kind of like, I've got a very small footprint online. Like I said, I don't have social media. I don't have Twitter. Don't have Instagram. Don't have Facebook. Or if I do, they're like closed down.
Yeah.
The only social media I've got is my business pages, and that's it. So there's like the Instagram page and the Facebook page, and then if you need to get a hold of me, my mobile number's there. But then there's not else about that. But I mean, it's like there's that part where I'm like, I don't know. I think you'll probably find this with, like you were saying, that you generally find a lot of people are slightly introverted. I don't like being too shouty. Like, I don't being like, oh, this is who I am.
I don't think
checking my bookshelf, guys. I value this knowledge over anything. Like,
it's all those cardboard books, like it's wallpaper of books. Look at all this
the
stuff
green
I've got.
screen or whatever. Yeah. I kind of just like let the product talk for itself. But then, like you're saying, like people probably want to know who it is that's behind it. So that
I did.
Yeah.
And I'm sure few people have.
And it goes back to when we started this, you know, I'm still trying to work out the best way to phrase that opening question to really get people to open up to who they are, because the product is what it is because of who you guys are. Yeah. And I think that's really important. And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to communicate, because how do you communicate? When was it you started? 2000?
Well, officially 2014, I think.
So there you go. How do you communicate 2014 to 2023?
Through a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that is the answer. Maybe it's through doing more stuff like this.
But if somebody doesn't ask the question, then you don't ever get an answer. It's like if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, doesn't make a sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know. So no, that kind of ties in. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's. I hope it's coming more to light. I hope some of the work we are doing is a drop in the ocean to it, but I know there's a lot of other people that are, you know, Instagram's a great method for sharing stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's my favorite of all the.
Is it?
Yeah, definitely.
See, I've got a love-hate relationship with it because it's my favourite and it's wicked good and it's the absolute best we've got.
Yeah.
I am a strong believer of it as the best we've got, but
Everyone's
not
just
sure
so
it's
busy
there.
looking at the numbers, you know, like, oh, I didn't reach this many people, or all my stats are down, and like my follower count's gone down. I think people overthink that a little bit too much because we do think about it, but it's like,
well, you deal with that side more than
Yeah.
me, so you're definitely the right person to talk about it. But you know, I've seen short of temper tantrums from, you know, you just trying to get those follower numbers up or trying to get those
not more
numbers up
for
and
me,
get-
but for the people who are like,
Yeah.
we're trying to feature.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely.
And so what's your strategy to it all? Is it just
Well, I mean, there was what did me like really well back in the day. It's changed now because the algorithm, like, and I'm not analytical when it comes to stuff at all. I did a few things that hit and they hit well. Was I was doing giveaways.
Okay.
So I would just say, here's a giveaway, free chant. I'll ship it anywhere in the world, free of charge. All you have to do is, I think it was on Facebook. I started was just like it, share it, and then leave a comment, and then that's it. You know,
Right.
And I think the first time I did it before the analytics changed, it was like, I think it was over 3,000 entries, and I think I hit like 330,000 profiles.
wow?
Yeah, which I hired a company to do my cost per click campaigns on Google and stuff, and they didn't really work out that well. I think the market was too niche for them, and I don't think they really knew what avenue to go down. And I told him what I was doing on Facebook and what I was getting, and he was like, "You don't need us." He's
Right.
like, "If you're able to get that organically, because I didn't put any paywall behind that at all. That was just go."
Yeah.
And so
Cost of
off the
one
back
channel.
of that, yeah. So then you'd get people, if you're interested, you'd then like the page. And then I'm putting stuff up on the page. And as long as the stuff was attractive enough, then people would be Christmas, birthdays, bar mitzvahs, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, they'd be like, oh, that channel's popped up. I wouldn't mind that for my husband. And that's how that kind of got big. So, I mean, the Facebook page is, I don't do as much on Facebook anymore because a lot of the stuff I post on Instagram goes over automatically.
Yeah.
So that kicked it up. So, I mean, that I think that page is now 8,500, I think, is on the Facebook page, which I think there's only like, from what I found, like 3 companies, or might even be 2, that are bigger than that in the piping community. So it's one of the bigger.
Very niche industry, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the biggest one is like down in they're like the biggest in the world, and I think they've maybe got like 10 or 11 or something. So they're
Wow.
all kind of tight.
So you're in shooting range of being the top.
yeah.
And I mean, let's not get blown away. We are talking about follower
just
numbers.
footprint. Yeah, so, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I find wild about that, right? We were talking about this the other day because we were trying to grow the YouTube channel and we had like 410 subscribers or something, and
412 now.
412, there you go. And it's nothing when you look at it on the face of a channel, because you're used to looking at people that's 4 million, 5 million.
Yeah.
Or you look at 27,000 followers. We were talking about this with Overleaf.
We did a podcast with you.
Yeah, yesterday, which is coming out reasonably soon. So you look at that and you're like, oh, it's only 27,000. Our goal has always been to hit 100,000. No idea why. Just one of those arbitrary
I think
goals.
you get
give
that
yourself.
wee gold play button, don't you, on YouTube? If you get the silver play button, I think
Yeah,
it's
so
for
stuff.
100,000.
Yeah, so stuff like that, and you're like, you look at that compared to the million, and you're like, but our 27,000
On
Instagram
Instagram,
followers, I couldn't fit them in this workshop.
27's a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you had that in a as a concert, you'd be like, "This is all right."
Yeah, this is
We've got a lot of people.
That was what I was saying last night. I'd fill a third of Murrayfield. I'd be pretty happy at that.
100%.
Third
Yeah.
of Murrayfield wanting to see the content we are putting out.
Yep.
And we're all so numb to it because people are putting like getting 1 million views or getting 1 million followers and stuff. And I think it's difficult, innit? Because you pour your life and soul into stuff like this, but you need to kind of rationalise it a bit.
Yeah.
Is it something you've ever come across? Is it something you've ever struggled with, or?
Not so much. I mean, the social media side. See, because I think I don't have personal profiles. I have a bit of a disconnect with really how much I care. I mean, this sounds daft, but how much I care about what people really think, because I mean, if I go on holiday or something, like I don't take pictures. I just like go on my holiday and enjoy it, and then that is
That was
it.
chat.
Yeah. Whereas my wife, she'll like to take pictures and put them on her Instagram and show people and tag folk and all that.
A bit like me.
But I mean, it's like I get that, I get it, because then you've got a reference of something that you've then gone and done. Whereas you've just got my word for it. But I'm very much like, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. So, I can spin it whatever you want. Like,
you've got a picture to prove I didn't do that.
100%. So, but so I don't get emotionally attached to like the outcome of what I'm putting up. Sometimes
I'll
look
that's
at
because it's strictly a business thing.
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because I mean, yes, I am emotionally attached to what people think about my stuff. Like if somebody comes to me with a complaint or something, if it's an arbitrary complaint, like that something just happened. It's broken, then I'm like, it's okay, we can fix it. But if somebody comes back and attacks it, then I'm like, I do feel it. And I'm like, because I don't want people feeling that way about my stuff.
Right.
Right. So
do you view it as an attack on you or an attack on the product?
Some people, it depends. Some people have attacked me. I remember one guy, and it was a legitimate mistake where I'd sent a chanter to his daughter out in Canada, and what had happened was in the case, the top had all the upgrades on it, so it had the metal mouthpiece, and what happened was the top had come free from the case, had slipped down the case, and then it hit in the bottom of the wood and took a chunk out the sole. So there was a big chunk missing out the sole. So when the guy opened the case and was like, oh, we've waited 8 weeks for this. Like, what is that? And there was a chunk missing out the bottom. And like, there was no way. And I'm the guy that deals with every single piece. And I go through them like so meticulously before they go out. And there was a chunk missing off the bottom. And he's like, I have a feeling this was put in the case like this. This looks like it was glued on. I was like, for one, I was like, absolutely didn't. I was like, have you seen my stuff on Instagram? Yeah. Like, the stuff is immaculate. Like, I do everything I can to make it. It's wood, so there is certain points where you can make it as perfect as you can, but there's certain, like, features in it that you're never going to get rid of.
Wood, yeah.
It's wood. It's not plastic. It's not steel. But there's certain ways that you can, but what he was showing me was just like, absolutely not.
That wasn't your 1-star review, was it, on Google?
I have. Do you know what? Harry Jones. Like, Harry Jones, the guy's name is. Sorry, Harry, by the way. Yeah, I've got that one. And that was my fault. And that was a lack of admin. I still remember. He bought a long yellow Hornet. Sorry. I still remember. But it wasn't him.
But cut deep.
We'll come. Yeah, that guy was brutal. But that was my fault. What happened is if an order comes through the website, it gets put on the system, and then I can just sit down and I can print it off and everything's there. If somebody just says to me, I want to buy a chanter, and I go, fine, I'll then send you an invoice, you then pay the invoice, and then I then have to manually take everything and put it onto the system, and then it's on with everything else. Mm-hmm. If I don't manually put it on, then I forget about it. And that's exactly what happened with him. So he placed the order, and I didn't even know that I could do this. I was just like, need to remember that. And I didn't know at that time that you could manually put things on the system. I was just like, I'll just write it down and hopefully I don't forget. And I totally forgot. Yeah. So he'd ordered this chanter, and it wasn't until last minute. I was like, fuck, I've completely forgot that guy's chanter. And then he left the review. He was like bailing, and I was like, oh my God. So I was like, okay. Again, put
your hands up and say sorry.
I put my hands up. I mean, yeah, I was like 100%. I'm so sorry. Like, I completely dropped the ball on this. I can't remember what I said, but I still remember what he ordered. I still remember his name. He was Canadian as well. And to piss a Canadian person off, you're doing really well.
Yeah, you're doing a good job.
Pretty sure he was Canadian, and I think that would have been 5 years ago, maybe, probably about that. But yeah, no, that wasn't him.
So it sounds like he still haunts you.
Because it's that 1-star review. It's the only one I've got on Facebook. So. Not Facebook, sorry, Google. Yeah, so this other 1-star review is the one on Facebook. So what happened, had come down and taken a chip off it. And I was like, all right, what's happened here? I was like, this will tell you if it happened before I put it in the case, or, because I was like, customs could have got into it, because customs have tucked into stuff before. Yeah. And they don't
put it back properly.
Nah, I had a woman at Christmas that happened. They didn't put it back, and it turned up and it was just an empty tube.
No way.
Yeah, they didn't. I put heavy duty staples in it. Like, you need to pry it open, and they'd opened it. Just put the lid back on it, and if you drop it, it just falls out. And that's it done. Yeah. So
like a poster type tube.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I was like, okay, this is how we find out. I was like, are the pieces of wood still in the case? And he sent me pictures, and the wee pieces of wood were still in the case where it had been chipped off. So I was like, okay, it's happened in the case. This is what I think's happened. And I explained to him, and he sent me a picture, and you could see there was like a little radius of where you could clearly see the top had come down and it hit it. And I was like, a couple of options. You can either send it back and I'll repair it. If it's not repairable, I'll just replace it, or I'll give you a refund. And the guy was fuming. Like, he was absolutely fuming. So I was like, look, those are your options. So he was wanting me to refund him before sending the chanter back. And on the terms and conditions, I was like, I'll refund you, but I need to have the product back with me first, and then I'll refund you if you don't want me to fix it. So anyway, I was dealing with his wife first, and his wife was like, okay, fine. If you're able to fix this is fine. I was like, no problem, send it back. You'll get what you've paid for regardless, whether it's brand new or it's repaired. If it's too much, then you'll get a brand new one. Don't worry. So she was fine. The husband got back in touch, kicking off. So he was kicking off, and he's like left a review on my Facebook page and was like, never worked with a worse company, like wanted us to send back the chanter before he was gonna, he refused to refund us, I think he said, wanted us to send back the chanter, blah, 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 blah. And he basically left like a massive scathing review. But fortunately, is I had all the screenshots of the emails from the whole conversation. And I'd been completely so I basically was like, really sorry to see this. I'm so sorry. This is what I think's happened. And I wrote it all out and said, look, I'll give you a full refund if you want, and wrote everything out. And then I just replied and was said, thanks for the review. And I put the screenshots of the email conversation up, basically me saying, I'll give you a full refund, or I'll fix it, or whatever. Like, I'll make sure you've got the chanter you wanted, blah, 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 blah. And then he left
You've got to do that just to protect yourself, because, it's...
Because it was, it's because you like, it's, you try, it's the people that you try your best to go over and above. Like, that guy would have got the chanter that he wanted to if he'd just been like, most people, 90% of people will just go, I'm really sorry this has happened. And I'm like, sorry, you send it back. I'll take care of the shipping, blah, blah, blah. But that guy was just like not having any of it, and then went to go and try and like scathe me on the Facebook. And I was like, I'm not playing this. There's the screenshots. So anybody reading that can go, wow, this company sounds like a dick. And then they go, oh, hang on, let's see the screenshots. Oh no, hang on a minute. This guy's like actually the one who's, and then they can look, and then that's now a line drawn under that review.
Yeah,
as opposed to somebody leaving a review and you go, like the Harry Jones, where he was 100% correct. I took way too long to do it. And the reason why is because I manually took his payment, completely forgot about it. And it just took me so long to get around to it. By the time I'd realized he'd already left a review and was like, and he was totally within his right. That's what reviews are there for. Yeah. So, I'll just leave it there. And I apologized and said, look, I'm sorry. I should have been a bit more, but these are things that you learn. Now, if I get an order, it gets put straight on the system. And then as I'm going through them, it pops up the same as the rest of them, and I don't miss it.
Yeah.
You're quite good at that though. That's obviously Harry Jones and this other guy, and another couple of things came up earlier about issues you've had.
Yeah.
So two things you're very good at actually that you should be commended for. People are normally quite afraid to talk about those issues. Mm-hmm. So commend you for being able to just talk about it up front, because ultimately it is why all you guys as makers products are where they are. Yeah. And every time you've been like, yeah, my fault.
Yeah.
But have you always been like that?
I think, do you know what, it comes back? There's a point where you need to, I'm going to go back to Jacko Willink here, is you need to accept responsibility for everything that you do. Because as soon as you start trying to blame somebody else, then you've then lost control of it. Like when I was working where I was working and I wasn't making enough money, I just blame my boss. He's not paying me enough. I can't afford to pay my bills, or I can't afford to pay my electricity. Sorry, guys, I can't afford to come out this week because I want to get paid X amount. Yeah. I can just blame my boss because he's the one paying me. Like, there's nobody else to blame but me. But when you're in here, and if I'm hitting the end of a week going, I've not got enough money to pay my bills, whose fault's that? It's my fault. Mm-hmm. Like, there's no, you can't just
say people aren't ordering enough. No. Why are they not ordering enough? Because your marketing's not strong enough. Because you're not putting it out there enough. You're not doing enough. 100%.
And I think people, I'm the opposite. I look at that and go, I'm glad that I've got control over that, because when things go wrong, I can then fix it. Because half of what I do in here is fixing something. Whether it's a machine broken down, or there's a knot in the wood, or maybe the finish isn't quite as good, or there's something in the metal. You're going, how do I sort this? How do I fix this? If I'm not making enough money, how do I fix it? How do I make this better where I can then change this? Because as soon as you start blaming somebody else, you're then pushing the power off, and then you become a victim, you know, and then you got that victim mentality of going, I can't do this because of X. Yeah. Or this person doesn't allow me to do this because I don't get paid enough by them, so it's their fault. And I feel like people are scared to start businesses because they also don't want to take on that responsibility.
Yeah, what you said there about, like, as soon as you blame it on, you've lost control. I think there's nothing not a truer word being said. You know,
it's fair to read it or you hear it. And I actually, when I came across the Jacko Willink stuff, but I'd already had that mindset before listening to him. Yeah. And when he was saying, because a lot of the times they go, just accept it.
It was Jocko's stuff I'd read when I first built a team. Yep. When I first built an engineering team, it was his book I read, it was his podcast I listened to.
And it's true though, and a lot of the times you can go, there's still some times where you go, is that really my fault? But then you have to boil it down and you go, at some point, something has gone wrong that you had control over, and now you don't. And this is now where we are. Like, it's the whole thing. Everything happens for a reason. So I
the good and the bad.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So, and again, if I get to the end of a week and I've got, if I get to the end of a year and I've made X amount of money, I can go, thanks. Like, this, you're doing good. Things are going fine. You crack on cracking on. And instead of just, because then that helps you take the next step, as opposed to, because then you're in control of that. You're like, I can do this. I can push this in the direction I want it to, as opposed to being, I can't because of X.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner that you can accept that, it makes things way easier. Like, it makes things ever easier in like relationships as well, and anything that can go wrong. And sometimes it can hurt. Sometimes you can have something that'll hit you, and initially you'll get like a visceral reaction, like an emotional reaction to go, nah. And then you sit and think about it and go, right, okay, we need to take a step back here, and we need to regroup and figure out like how we can figure this out. And I think it makes me an easier person to deal with, because if it legitimately is my fault, like there's not going to be an argument. If I'm thinking about it, I'll be like, cool, I'll fix it. If that's what it is, I'll fix it. Like, it can be fixed.
So how do you stop that sort of visceral reaction? Have you had to train yourself to do that, or again, has it just been something that you've been aware of?
I think it depends on how deep the initial attack is.
So this is exactly the reason I ask it, because as makers and you guys all doing what you do and pouring so much into it, it's so easy to consider yourself the product yourself as one, or the business yourself the business, and an attack on the product being as offensive as an attack on you personally.
Yeah, I think in terms of like product, I don't think, like, sometimes you'll get like an instant like hit and you're like, okay, hang on a minute. Because every single chanter, because I finish them all by hand, and I'm looking at them and I see every single one. You almost, as I'm going through, if I'm making, let's say 15, and I'll individually know what each individual chanter looks like because of like certain quirks. Because you're spending that much time with the wood, you can see it, you're feeling it. Like the certain ones, like if I went through and picked one of the chanters off of that board through there, there's a carbon one which is grey. If I look at the bottom of it, there's a tiny knot that's about 1.5 millimeters across, and then there's a white stripe that leads up the top. I know that because I've been working on it for the last week. So I know that piece of wood's got that characteristic because I've spent so much time with it. So you know these kind of things, and you get to know each. I know this sounds like I'm going to go into the whole, like an influencer bullshit, but it's like you kind of get a wee bit intimate with each product, and each product when it's finished, it's like you're putting it in the box and you've been like, right, that's you done. Your journey with me is done. You're going to your owner now, and you're going to carry on your purpose. This is what you're meant to do. So then when you put it in the box, and most of the times you don't hear from the customers. A lot of the times though, they get sent away, and then that's it. And you just hope that you don't ever hear from them, because usually if you do, there's usually something wrong. But occasionally you get somebody get back to you, and they'll be like, thank you so much. This is like way better than I expected, blah, blah, blah. And they'll give you like a really nice thing. And
Doesn't
you go,
that just make your day?
100%.
You're always sitting there like, I wonder what happened to that chant or that chant. Wouldn't it be nice for someone to say, reach out and be like, actually, it was really good?
Some people do, and they take the time. And I'm always very thankful to say thank you so much, because like I said, I look at it as like, you've finished your journey with me. You're now going on your journey to where what your purpose is to teach somebody or to help somebody in their musical journey, and that's where you're going. So it's nice when somebody comes back to me and goes, you're helping me on that journey. Thank you very much. So when I get that, exactly. So when somebody comes back to me and says, like, again, if it's something like, I don't know, if it's something that's defective in whatever way, that's fine. Okay, we'll go back to the point where it either can get fixed or we can handle it. But when somebody attacks probably more me as opposed to the product, like that guy who said, this looks like it's been repaired, like you've basically sold me a duff. I was like, then you're attacking my ethics.
Yes.
Which even though you're attacking the product, you're more attacking the ethic behind it.
Yeah.
And that's when I had an issue of being like, no, I don't play that game. And even if I did, I've now offered you a full refund, a brand new chanter, or to fix it if the last one can't be done. So it's not as if it's you know, I'm just being like, like, you know, the Nigerian prince where I'm like, oh, I've got your 100 grand, see you later.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I will be with you until you are completely happy with it, because I don't want that cancer of a bad customer being out with other people.
Yeah.
Because that compounding effect of you being unhappy is going to affect everybody that you talk to. So it's worth more to me that you are as happy as you can be.
Yeah.
And okay, fair enough. You might come away and go, don't like it, don't like the stuff. Then I'm never going to fix that.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that I can do to fix that. So I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I've got no control over that. That's just
also
your view.
magnified in such a small niche.
Yeah.
The
You
shame
do
it,
get that illness of a customer.
Yeah.
the bad thing is a bad review goes further than a good one.
100%. If I'm going to reviews and you've got 100,000 good reviews,
one. You
I'm
always
like
got the
straight to
bad
number
one.
one.
I
Like you
know.
What's
said
the
there,
worst
you were
one?
like, you went
Yep.
straight to the bad review and you
Yeah.
can see it. Yeah.
Only because I was scrolling through and it happened to be the last one.
Oh, well, there you go. Well done for
Yeah.
going through all the reviews then. Well done.
Yeah. It is that
I was
thing
looking
though,
for your
we're all-
name, by the way.
And you still couldn't find it?
No.
Oh, nice.
we're also programmed to just look for. I remember my first ever job in TK Maxx in the stock room and the training day, and it's like, I don't know if they were trying to tell me something at the time. They're like, just remember, if you give bad customer service, we'll tell 10 people.
Yeah.
If you give good, they might tell one, and it's chronic. Like it's terrible.
I know. We're
Yeah.
You need to
programmed
be
that
so
way,
aware
aren't
of
we?
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we are. So we've talked loads about you in the business. Go and show us a chanter and explain what a chanter is.
All right.
Because I've actually just realised that there's probably stacks of people that don't know what a chanter is.
All right. I'll give me 2 seconds. I'll
Yeah,
go through
yeah.
and get one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh, loving the red one.
Well, that's the pink one there. Just shut things over. You can take it off, don't worry, I can polish it. Yeah, you can take that off there. Oh, there you go.
Look at that, eh? It's so different when you actually hold things, isn't it?
That's,
Yeah.
So that one, these are. That
Oh,
was
there's a bit of heft to it, eh?
Yeah.
So
There's a bit of weight.
that was finished just this morning. In fact, that's the. There you go. That's the black one I was telling you about, and then there's the little knot that I was telling you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. And I think there was a stripe on the top of this one. There you go. There's a white stripe that I was telling you about. So it's just that's how intimate you get, is that you just know these things.
So the chanter is the entry to play in the bagpipes. Yep.
Yep. So that's. So what happens is you got.
Go next to
The
your
reed
mic.
goes inside. This is the this is the Black Widow. If anybody's interested, that's the red one. So that if you want to learn the pipes, this is what you start on.
Yeah. Go each in.
There you go. It's quite cold in here, so I don't know how far I can go. There you go. You can have a look at it.
And why a chanter to learn to play the pipes? Why would you go to something like this? Is it just because of the accessibility? It's a much smaller thing. It's a much...
The pipes are. It would be like the pipes are
Lovely,
a pretty physical instrument. Like they're hard to play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
pipe
like
players
yeah, it's a
between
tough
massive
instrument.
necks
Yeah.
and like big old cheeks.
Yeah, it's a tough instrument to play. So, but a lot of it is. So on this is what you. Oh, cheers! Is what you start on to get the finger work down effectively.
Right.
Um,
So is the bottom of the chanter the same as the... I'll butcher whatever it is, but the flute part on the bottom of the bagpipe.
yeah, so you've got a pipe chanter, which there's probably, in fact, there's a couple on the board back there, but the pipe chanter is the part that actually goes into the pipes itself.
Right. So
And-
basically the bottom of that is what would come out the bottom of a bagpipe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the fingering and everything's the same. And so you practice on this to get your fingering right. I mean, this one here, you've got your standards versions and you've got your longs. The standards are generally for people who are just starting out. Because the fingering is a wee bit closer together, it makes it a bit easier to kind of manage. And then when you get to a certain point, you can, if you want to, go into a long span, that's a long span there, which is the holes are directly comparable to a pipe chanter. In
Right, so
terms
it'd
of
be a
spacing.
1-for-1.
Yeah.
Right.
So some people stick with the standards because that's what they prefer to play. They play it and they stick with it and it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But some people go, well, if I'm playing a set of pipes and I'm going to be playing, then why not have the fingering? It's just spacing. That's the only difference is the spacing, the fingering, the technique, everything is all exactly the same.
And would you get a standard on a set of bagpipes?
No. So a pipe chanter is always exactly, the spacing's always the same.
Right.
Yeah, it's always the same.
So you could effectively pick up anyone and it would be
Yeah.
the same, and that's a standard.
Yeah, the only change that you get is when you start getting into things like small pipes. So you get with the small pipes, you get different keys. So, for instance, like a key of A will be effectively the same spacing as what that is, whereas a D key chanter, your fingers are as close as, if not closer together than that, like they're pretty much touching. So your
That
fingers,
A or D being the note.
that's the key of the key of the chanter,
right,
yeah.
okay.
So that's just the key, and then you've got C, which is like kind of somewhere in between. But other than that, for the Highland pipes, like you can learn on these to make small pipes, to not make small pipes, to practice the small pipes, because the fingering's all the same. All the pipes, the fingering's all, one on one. I could play a set of small pipes, set of Highland pipes, a practice chanter, whatever. So if you are a piper, you have to have a practice chanter.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the pipe parts, it's the blow bag, isn't it? It's the inflating and keeping that so it's a constant.
Yeah, that's it.
The whole point is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you blow it up and then when you're squeezing it down, it's a constant flow of air, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got your bag, which is your reservoir. You fill that up, and then you've got your 3 drones, which sit on your shoulder, which, when we go back to the start of the conversation, the drone dry was a moisture control system, which when you're blowing into the bags, there's a lot of moisture goes into it. And when it gets sucked to your reeds, the reeds go out of tune because it changes the harmonics as the tongue vibrates. If it gets wet,
and reeds are actually reed, aren't they? Originally, they were actually reed. Is that right?
Yeah. So if you go through, I've got a display through there that I put together after I won the Worlds with the band in 2019, and it's got my reeds in there. And I play cane in the band, which is like old school. So like most people don't play cane anymore,
right?
Unless they're high end. There's the top 5 bands in the world probably play cane. And apart from that, nobody touches it because it's an art form in its own right. But if you look at them, they're just literally pieces of cane with splits stuck in them.
Okay.
Yeah. And those ones through there, I've actually got hairs jammed under the tongue so that you can then set the pressure. Right. Because the cane itself naturally wants to close off. So you have to train the tongue to stay up, and then you have to train it to be effectively the right pressure.
Wow.
It's a completely other art form.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people, you need to be really into it, but it's the difference in cane is like unbelievable when you're playing with a full set of pipes. They're louder, they're broader, they don't take as much air. So it means your pipes, they sound bigger. They're just the cane. If you play a set of pipes with cane, it's like the difference in sound is unbelievable. But it's an art form to get them right. So you've got 20 guys in a band all trying to do the same thing. All of you guys, 60 reeds need to be all doing the same thing. Because if you've got one that starts to go a bit funny, it affects the entire sound. Oh. It knocks that out, and you start to get a drift or a waviness.
Right.
So yeah, that's why a lot of bands, that's why 99.99% of bands don't touch it, because although it's your F1 car of performance, not everybody is able to or willing to be able to try and do that, because it's just not worth your time.
So the F1 car is the perfect analogy. The F1 car might be the thing of performance, but I think after 2006 or 2008 or something, like the average driver couldn't even start an F1 car.
Yeah.
Like you just wouldn't know where to start. You look at the helmet cam stuff, and you look at what are all those buttons?
Yep.
You've not even got those many buttons with all the mod cons you've got versus what. So yeah, that's the perfect analogy, because if you've not got that expertise behind it.
Yep.
So talking about your expertise, so you've obviously won Worlds. Mm-hmm. It seems like you are the most qualified guy to make these. What about the other companies that are in it? And I know that'll be a hard thing for you to admit, but what about the other companies that are in it? Are they time-served musicians?
Yeah, there's 2 other companies that are in the same industry. The guys who own them have won world championships, but that is it as far as I know. In fact, no, there's another one out in Canada, the 2 guys there who have. So there's a couple people around the world. There's not that many, but it definitely helps. Yeah. I mean, it definitely helps because you understand what really goes into, making something sound from okay to being sounding good.
Yeah.
And I think, it gives you a bit of confidence in being able to kind of know what you're talking about.
Yep.
Even though this is one reason, my friends shit taught me for this as well, being like, you need to make yourself a bit more, like you need to use some of this clout to try and sell stuff more. But I don't really like the idea of like selling myself like that, even though it would probably help, because then people are like, oh, but you know, I don't want
it would.
I don't like the whole kind of like influencer kind of side of things. I'd rather
It's
just.
not, though. It's
I know. It's a thing that I'm stuck on. I definitely am.
It is a brush that tars things, though, isn't it? The
Yeah.
influencer thing, like, we can all say we hate influencers, but they're just a business. And they're
100%, yeah.
really, really, really effective advertising.
Oh, I noticed that last year in particular. I gave a girl on Instagram
I saw that on
one of my
Instagram.
chanters, and things went mental after that. She's got a big, good following, and she's really good at what she does.
Yeah.
She's excellent at what she does.
But that's
And,
the thing.
yeah.
You've picked someone
Who's
who genuinely
good.
can, like, let's not just use the word influencer flippantly. Like, she can influence your target market.
She's a legit influencer, yeah. Because
Yeah.
if she said, this is the worst thing in the world, don't ever buy it, like, or
You'd have been closing the doors.
yeah, this is the or if not, it'd been, as long as you're not watching her, then you know my sales. But she picked it up and she was like, I really like this. This thing's amazing, and it went from being like, it went nuts. Like I went from being like a 3-week waiting list to like 6 months. Like within this, like say so overnight, which is like,
Whereas if she was just an influencer, open quotation, close quotation, that had been on Love Island and played the recorder in Primary 5, that's not the
No.
effect that it would have. So
Yep.
I think I'm just aware that we all bash influencers, and there is absolutely a place for them, providing they
Do your
are
homework.
exactly as you've
Yeah.
said they are. They're used as a marketing thing.
Yeah, I think exactly. But it also comes into, I think some people are quite stepping away from this situation, but some people I think quite naive and will be like talking about the influencer, and you could say you're on Love Island and you go, oh, buy these shoes because they're amazing. Folk are like,
Yeah.
oh, I buy the shoes, they're amazing. They don't see the $100,000 deal that they've got Nike in the background. You know, it's
None of the influence. There's an ethics involved in it, but the negativity towards the sort of influencer, as we would perceive an influencer on the surface, isn't necessarily the influencer's fault.
no, it's just
They are just doing marketing.
yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're marketing to a certain demographic, and if that demographic matches your product, like for me, it made sense to her because she does piping, and my demographic is pipers, so it makes sense to me to say, okay, you know, why not deal with this? Or like, for instance, you got like, what was your guy that ran the marathon in like 1 hour and 50 minutes? What was his name? Kipchoge. If you've got him, like, I wear Nike shoes. Like, that's legit, you know, that's a legitimate influence because
For
that guy.
people that want to run marathons fast.
Yeah, as opposed to just being like, oh, I'm a gamer and I'm, you know, and what is it, like that titles thing that people are selling? You're like, you've got no interest in like this stuff. You're just doing it because it's of making money. But I can't criticize that because I'm not in their shoes. It's different when they get to the end of the month and they go, I need X amount in order to cover my costs. This company is going to give me that money. If I give them a 3-minute ad slot on this to cover that base, you know, so I can understand that you are running a business, and you know, but it's
long as it's done ethically.
Yeah.
So long as, like, they're like, you're giving me X to advertise this chanter. If I'm like world's best piper, you're saying I'm giving you X to advertise this chanter. You need to say it's good.
yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's crap. And you're like, but I'll give you X amount if you say it's good.
Cryptocurrency scams. Perfect example.
I was talking to somebody about this just yesterday. The people that are making the most money in cryptocurrency are the ones selling you the course how to get into cryptocurrency.
Or pumping and dumping. You saw what happened.
Yeah,
you know, you
yeah,
saw like all these finance influencers where the whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing came out, and then they were making like $500,000 a month pushing FTX, and then all of a sudden it turns out he's a fraud, and they're like, oh, we're sorry about that. You know, we didn't mean to push it. And you're like, you literally pushed a product from a guy that was a legitimate like Ponzi scheme effectively,
Yeah.
and they're just like, oh, sorry about that, but we made $500,000. How much did you guys lose? Oh, you know, sorry. And you go,
Give some of that back.
yeah, you go, where's the accountability there? Where's the accountability?
It all
Like,
comes down to that accountability.
yeah,
doesn't it?
but it's because there's so when you compare something like me giving a chanter to somebody like the influencer, and then she says to her other people, and she goes, I'm actually playing this and I actually really do like it, as opposed to being like, sign up for my cryptocurrency and you get one free stock, and they'd be like, but they've given me $500,000 to say this, and you're like, okay, there's that bit in the middle, and everything else is a kind of grey area on the spectrum of being like ethical and being like these people are actually interested in the product, that this is their audience.
Yeah, it's an honesty thing, isn't it? And actually, again, it goes back to you being able to show off what you're doing a little bit more documentary type stuff, or short form type stuff, or even stuff like this, where you're able to talk to people, and where it's maybe where we hope we can be is show people who the makers actually are, because that accountability is coming through in their honesty.
Yeah,
you know, it's very clear when you sit down for a long. You can't hide in these settings.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot hide in a podcast setting. You cannot hide.
Yeah,
Like, you will slip up.
Yeah,
100%. I don't even know how we got onto all that. But we're talking about pipes.
Well, we were talking about influencers.
That's
and,
it. Yeah. So you've done the influencer thing for your marketing, and she loved it.
Yeah, she still plays it. Yeah,
Oh,
and,
yeah?
I said to her, I said to her again, it's hard to get genuine and genuine feedback from people, because a lot of people don't want to tell you their feedback. They'll just go, oh, yeah, it's great. And then you find out from their mate when they're in the pub that they didn't like something about it, and you go, why not just tell me to my face? Like, I asked you, I'm not sitting here with a knife going, oh, what's your thoughts?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I want you genuine, but a lot of people won't. So I messaged her and was like honest feedback. How do you feel about it? And she's like, this was the chanter I was playing before. I've been playing yours for 2 weeks. That one is going in the pipe case. I'm not touching it again. Love this one.
Nice.
And then as of her back, she's a teacher as well. So I'm still going a year on, still getting people coming back and being like, my teacher is this girl, and she suggested that I come and get your stuff. Nice. So if it wasn't good, then people, you know, you wouldn't get people
word of
coming
mouth
in.
is the best
100%, yeah.
marketing for sure.
Yeah. You've brought up feedback quite a number of times in this conversation. From a point of view of anyone who's listening, who's buying from makers, why is it that feedback's so important?
Because I think you only know so much. As much as you can be an expert or something, you can't be an expert in the world. No. Like I said, I'm not a kid in school, you know, who's got the chanter in their school bag, or I'm not somebody who's, you know, there's so many different aspects of people that will play my stuff, and there's only so much information that I can have that I can use in my own world. So I can take what I've got as a starting point. Like, for instance, good ideas. All these boxes you see behind you, these are all chanter cases. And a lot of these were from people, like, their kids would buy a chanter and they would take it to school and they had nowhere to put it. Yeah. If they don't play pipes, they've not got a pipe case. So people would go, you know, do you sell cases? No, I don't sell cases. So enough people were like, a case would be good. So I was like, okay, I'll get cases made. So I got cases made up.
And that's something you would never have had if people didn't get back to you.
Yeah. And so now I'd say, I mean, if you look on this here, I mean, how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of the 14 going out in that week have got cases. So at least half.
So if you hadn't got those cases, you wouldn't have.
So what does that 8 add on top of your order set there roughly financially?
30 quid.
So 30 quid times 8, so 240 on top on that one order sheet that you're showing us there of 14 orders. Yeah. That without people coming back to you.
Yep.
And credit to you, without you reacting on people's feedback promptly.
Yep.
Let's not take away from your own credit there. There is no way you would have been able to increase your income for that order sheet.
Yeah, no, it's all these little things. It's those little things that add up. And again, some of the criticism you can look at and go, but then you can put your expert hat on and go, okay, fine, you know. Yeah. But then there's other things you go, okay. And then you hear it again and you go, all right. And then you hear it again and you go, okay, now we need to like start thinking about this.
Yeah.
And you only get that. And it's nice to hear people going, I love your stuff. Like, I really love it. It's great. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't tell you anything.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, right.
But I'll give you, in fact, this goes right back full circle. This goes back full circle. So my guy on Facebook that left me that scathing review, from now, I always put a little pillow inside the case. So when the case lid's shut, the top can't come out. So from that one review from that guy, every single chanter case now with a chanter in it now gets a little piece of like doubled over bubble wrap, so that it is physically impossible for that top to come loose.
It cannot jump out of the case.
Yep.
Right.
So there you go. That review, and now that I got the guy with your man on Google left me the review to say, like, basically I waited ages for this and never got it because I never put it in the system. I sent it manually, completely forgot about it, and now I put all the stuff in the system.
Yeah.
There's a review.
Yeah, it's just constantly, you know, making your process better and, you know, making it easier for customers and not having these issues come up again.
Yeah.
And customers making it easier for you.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, the easier it gets for you, the better you can do.
Well,
the
that's
more
it. I
you
mean,
can do.
I'm working on software at the moment. This has been going on for a while. Is that when I'm making a new product, I can see what it's going to look like. Like, I'm really bad with words and things like that. I'm really descriptive in my head. So if I'm going to make something, I've already got the visual in my head, and then I work backwards. And that idea will sometimes like morph over time, because it's not like a perfect picture, but you've got an idea on what it's like thinking of a dream. You know what happened, but there's certain details that you can't quite put together, but you work out as you go. So if I'm making a new chanter, I know what it's going to look like. I know in my head, and I can see it. But a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
So the software I'm building is basically like, have you ever bought like a pair of Oakleys or anything online? You basically select the frame comes up, you select the lens
I
pops
know the
in.
ones you mean, yeah. Trek do Project One, and various companies do it for like custom paint jobs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. So I'm doing the same thing, but for the chanters. So
Nice.
you have everything as like a menu, and you go, okay, I want it in red. And then you go, what do you want the mouthpiece to be? It's like, well, I want it to be stainless steel. Okay. What do you want this, and that? And then you can
Build your own.
you can build a full chanter. You can see what it looks like. So you're not having to like, because the pictures on the website don't do them justice. The stuff on the Instagram is better. But you can then see it, and I go, right, do you want it in a case? And then it shows you pictures of that chanter inside the case. And then you can go, and then as you're going down the list, this is when you've got the extras, the add-ons. So as you're going down the list, you can add on stuff. You can see what it looks like with the add-ons. You can then take them away. You see the price at the bottom. And then you can go, there's a button that I've got connected to individual albums on Instagram that you can say like, see real life examples. You click on that, it opens your Instagram, and then it gives you a folder of all the chanters that I've taken pictures in the workshop that people have sent, so that they can physically see not
A
just
real life one,
a
not
real
just a
life
render.
picture of what it looks like with
Nice.
the videos, all the reels. So you can look and go, that's what it looks like. This is how it's actually going to be. And then you can say, right, now I'm you're caught up in it, and you go, that's what I want to buy. As opposed to just looking at it and going, yeah, I think that'll look quite good.
Yeah.
And then buying it,
Makes
even
it easier for them to just, but yep, going to get it.
100%. And it's set up as well so that it's a kind of progressive part. So, so the inside, like the chanter inside the case is like the fully upgraded version. So when you're looking at it, you can go, so even if you've gone for the basic, when you look at it inside the case, it's the fully upgraded version. So you look and you go, hey, that looks quite good actually. And then you go,
Just add this extra.
yeah, exactly. And then you see the plastic cap that comes with
It's
it. Or you can,
upselling, is it not? Is that not what we call
I
it?
guess it's kind of like that, yeah. But it's when you see it all together as a package, you go, hey, that looks really good. But at the moment, I don't have that. It's literally just like a few thrown together images, and it's put there. And some of them have been doctored, some of them haven't. But I want them to be like clean, that people can see exactly what they're going to get when they purchase it. And then when they open the case, they go, this is what I was expecting. Because at the moment, a lot of people go, which is a nice thing, but a lot of people go, it's better in real life than what it looks like online. But I'm like, okay, then online isn't good enough.
That's my view. It's a wicked thing that people are saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm all like, we get it a lot with the book, because people
Yeah.
are like 18 quid for a magazine, and then they get it and they're like, oh
This is a
shit, it
book.
was only 18 quid, because
Yeah.
it's just under a kilo in weight.
That's not a magazine, man.
No.
You're definitely
No, we
understand.
I know, we
totally
did, we
bummed
did.
the market.
That's a softback book.
Exactly, yeah. We're trying to use the word publication now, but even we need to remind ourselves.
That's thick. Yeah.
It's not a magazine.
It's a chunk.
And I'm often like, it's wicked that people are telling us it's better than it looked online, or it's better than they thought. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, kicking myself.
But that's the people who've already bought it as well. How many folk were put off and was
Exactly.
like, I'm not going to buy that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. It's
Yes.
Yeah.
People looking at like
How do
shipping
you-
to
how do
America
you-
at whatever price
It's hard to
it is
sell
now.
things like this on the website
Yeah.
because you can't feel it, you can't smell it, you can't
Yeah.
feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's tough as well, because I got the professional pictures done, and they still, when you look at them, go, that doesn't look anything like real life.
Well, the first thing I noticed when I picked it up is the weight.
Yeah. They're like pretty chunky, yeah.
Yeah, the weight in it, and weight certainly to me is a telltale sign of
Well built.
really well built
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's at both ends of the spectrum. It's either you pick it up and you're like, oh, that's light, and from an
Yeah.
engineering aspect, I can
Like a
appreciate
trainer or
what-
something, you go, wow, there's nothing in there. How's that so
Yeah.
light? Yeah.
Exactly. Or you pick up something, you're like, that's going to last a long time. I associate weight with sort of lifespan.
Yeah.
Now, there is outliers. You look at, their names escape me. Barney and Woodturners.
Huh?
Brighton, Woodturners. One of them.
Ash and Plum.
Ash and Plum, that was it. And you look at their stuff, and I've seen some. I've never held it because I'm terrified to, but I've seen some of their stuff in person, and that's so light that I'm like, there's an art form to that. So that's one side of it. There is always going to be outliers, but in general, the heft, and you just cannot communicate that in reality without getting it in people's hands.
Yeah.
So the website thing's interesting, and I would definitely, we're looking at a bit of an app and stuff at the minute as well, and getting into that technological thing. So there's two questions here. The first is, are you just doing that yourself? Is that all self-taught? What
do you mean?
Building that side of the website?
Yeah, so that idea, I've had that idea sitting for a while. That's, to me, it just makes sense. I mean, nobody's told me to do it. It just makes sense to me because if I'm going to buy something, I research it to death, and it takes me a long time to make a decision.
Make sure your money's well spent.
Yeah, and I'll waste it on other things. So I'll like research something to death. And if we were talking about this earlier, before the cameras came on, we were talking about Instagram, like people's, what's the word I'm looking for? Their attention is so short that if things aren't there and now, then people are just not interested. So.
Man, I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to clip stuff out of podcasts, and I'm like at the point where I'm just trying to find like 3 good ones. Because it's so short. You need to hook people immediately.
Yeah, whenever I pick one, you're like, that's far too long. I was like, but it's so good. It's like people just won't listen to it for the full minute. Yeah. It's like, it's only a minute.
It's just put up the thumbnail of the people with the shot face in the fire, like, that'll get everybody to click.
Exactly.
This one thing changed his business forever. Like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So no, it was just one of those things. It just kind of made sense to me because, again, like I was saying, I can see what it looks like, but you can't because you're not me.
Yeah.
So in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, this looks great, and I'll do it. But then I need to be able to have it. I need to get you inside my head as much as possible so you can see what I see, and then you can understand what I understand and what other people who have already bought one understands. Because unless you know somebody that's already got one, then to you it's just a picture on looking at you, and unless you know what's going on there. And I think the other thing I was planning on doing is doing sound clips as well, so that people can see pictures what it's going to look like. They can go on the Instagram and say, okay, and then like, this is how it's going to sound, and then you can click a play button and you can hear how it sounds. Nice. And then all your questions are answered. It looks really good, but what does it sound like? Oh, it sounds really good, but what's it really going to look like? Oh, how much is it going to cost though? Everything's there. You don't need to ask questions. So anything that you've got or anything you're unsure of, you can see everything there in front of you with just a few clicks of a mouse, and you've got the entire experience covered all in one go.
Nice.
So it's just to make things a bit easier for customers as well.
Yeah.
And it'll just cut down on some of the choices as well, because instead of having 20 different thumbnails for the same chanter but different colours, you've just got it there. And then
chanter thumbnail.
And you just click your colour, you can completely build it in front of you, and then you've got all the details that you can add on or discard, and you can match it to whatever your price point is, and I just feel like it'll be a better customer experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what about the physicality of the product? Have you ever done any shows? What's your view and opinion on them?
Yeah, shows are great.
Yeah?
Yeah, I make a killing at shows.
So in your interest, in your industry and niche, shows are the one.
Oh, I love them, yeah. Like, unfortunately, there's not that many in the niche. Right. But the ones I have done, I've done a couple in the past.
Do you think that's a good thing, not having many niche? Do you think it keeps the bar quite high?
Maybe. I mean, I've not done any of the generic ones. Like, I haven't done any like the home show in SECC or anything like that. I haven't, because I feel like it's so niche. Again, it's one of those things you probably don't know until you've tried it.
I'm wondering if the Royal Highland Show, I don't know.
Something like that, or Scone Palace Game Fair, like one of those things where, I mean, you don't have to have that many people come by to justify it. And again, I haven't done those ones, but for instance, like the Royal Concert Hall not the concert hall, it's Piping Live, National Piping Centre do a stand, like a trade show stand at the concert hall before the big concert that happens. So World's Week's August, and then there's a Grade 1 pipe band will play at the concert that night, and they do a show during the day. And I've done that there, and every time I turn up, all my stock's gone by the end of the day.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'll turn up with 30 chanters, all gone, and then I'll have another 30 on orders when I leave.
That's wicked.
Yeah, and it works out really well.
It takes a lot of work though to do.
You might be one of the first people we've spoke to that's so positive about in-person.
I think, I mean, my cousin does them, the guy that does chutney, and he's like, he'll do like a day and a half's worth of work and be like, that's me just broken even. Yeah. And he'll be like, I've got Sunday to anything I make tomorrow will be money that I make. And And so, I mean, thing is though, they charge like 150, I think it was like £150 for the day. So if I sell one chanter, anything over and above, that's profit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so if you're,
So it's picking the right fare.
100%. But I think for them, it's just a show. But then I'll get people reaching out. I'll be like, I'm going to be at the show, and then people will reach out and go, "Can I place an order to pick up for that day?" And then they turn up with cash, and then they go, "That's it, they are done." And they go, "Oh, that looks quite good." Or you have people that are unsure, that are on the fence, have never felt it, never heard it, never touched it, never physically.
But they'll go there because they know you're there.
And I'll have a look, and then they pick it up, and then they go, "Oh, I get it now. Oh, I now understand." And then they go, "Okay, I'll take it." You know, it's one of those things that it's. I mean, I was out in South Africa last year piping.
Nice.
And before I went out, I was out helping a pipe band, and the pipe major was like, "Do you want me to see if anybody's interested in some chanters and you can make them up and take them out?" I was like, "Yeah." Not a single person was interested. So I was like, "Okay, fine. Like, it is what it is." It worked out fine for me. That means I didn't have to take stock. But I made 2 chanters and took them out with me. One for me and then one for my mate. And one guy saw them when we were playing in a pub and was like, "How much is that?" And I told him, I was like, "Well, I mean, I've been playing it. It's, you know, I'll give you a bit of a discount." And he's like, "Cool, I'll take it." And he's like, "The case?" I was like, "Yeah, case, fine, take it." And then another one was sold like an hour later. And at the end of the week, like 4 or 5 of the guys came up in the band, were like, "Have you still got those chanters?" I was like, "No, I've sold them." And they were like, "We were waiting till the end of the week. We were going to try and buy them off you." I was like, "No, they went like start of the week." And like it happened 4 or 5 times. The guys came up and were like, "Oh, like if we'd only known, like we would have placed the order before coming out."
I know, it's difficult,
But
isn't it?
it's one of those things. It's just like and I mean, South African currency, buying a practice chanter for us or an Americans, it's not a big thing. But for them, it's like a rent payment or a car payment. It like because of the balance, the pound to the rand is like crazy expensive. It would be like £800 to us. Right. You know, it is a lot of money when you balance it. But I mean, even coming back, a couple of the guys in the band ended up buying them anyway.
Right.
As a result, because when they were out there and they were like, they actually got to feel it, try it, you know, and they were like, "Oh, okay, we actually really like this."
So they might have been people that sat on the fence for 4, 5, 10 forever.
Yeah. They just, and again, you just don't know until you're like, "Oh, now I understand it."
Yeah. You
know, it's I suppose it's like buying a pair of shoes. If you put them on, you go, "Oh, I understand these now. This makes sense. I'll buy these."
Yeah.
Another thing is, do you stock in any shops or any other websites? Is that a thing?
Yeah, so I've got some retailers out in America.
Nice.
I've got ones in Europe. The only issue I run into with shops is that the stuff is so customizable, they struggle to pick up what is good to buy. Because
yeah, that's true. Like, what colour do you get? What styles do you get?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was to make one of every single chanter, there'd be like 100 different versions.
Yeah.
So for me is, and they sometimes ask, they go like, "What's a good seller?" And sometimes they'll just order the basic versions and they sell them really well, but they would sell more if they had loads of stock. But then they would need to spend like 30 grand in stock to have stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just not worth it for them.
Feels like you could do something cool with that though, like if it was the right shop with the right space, if you had like an exploded chanter, you know, bits.
An acrylic or something like that. You can see it all broken and exploded.
You know,
view.
you're talking about your new app there where someone could configure it on the app, order it in store, it gets shipped to the store.
Exactly. Well, the idea is, I mean, it's you've obviously got like a pricing structure to deal with the retailers. I think the route is what I'm going to end up going down is selling individual parts. So like, for instance, like if you see, the fact that none of these ones here have got any of the stuff. So you can see that's got the black mouthpiece and then it's got the standard sole. So that's like the basic version. That's the upgraded sole. But having it where you can remove these parts manually, like they're glued in place. Like the only way you can take them off is with a blowtorch.
Right.
Like that's, and you know, so you don't want to be putting a blowtorch in your ear. You can avoid it.
You can't do that in a shop.
So, I mean, I think the future idea could be to have a thread that you can, I mean, these are threaded anyway, but they're threaded and glued.
Yeah.
Would be to have it so that everything is just sold individually, and then I just sell you mouthpieces, I sell you soles, and I sell you plastic mouthpieces. And if somebody says, "I want this chanter with a bit bigger sole and a plastic mouthpiece," you just put the plastic mouthpiece on, you screw on the big sole, and then you go, that's it. And then you buy one chanter, and that covers you for the full range. All you do is
like
buy the
a
extras.
semi-custom shop.
Yeah, and I can just sell you the parts, and then you can go. Somebody goes, "Oh, I wanted that chanter, but I wanted with that sole. Well, sorry, we've only got that chanter." I'll go, "They've missed the sale." Whereas they go 2 seconds, screw it off, bang the next one on, and you go, "That's it there." And then they've made the sale, and then they've only had to outlay a small amount to cover your entire range.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
because there will be similar parts, won't there?
Yeah, I mean everything. I mean all the parts for all the long. I mean the mouthpieces are all the same. The only thing that different are the soles. these soles, unfortunately, are like 10 mil thick, and the standard soles are 7.5, so they don't directly screw on. There's a gap in the bottom. So I'm going to have to redesign, I'll probably meet somewhere half in the middle. I'll probably make these like 9 mil or 8.5 mil, and I'll make the 7.5 mils 8.5 mil, so that everything is just pull one off, put the other one on.
Yeah, big modular.
Yep, exactly. Make the whole thing modular, and then you can then just buy the individual parts and piece it together as you want it.
That'd be wicked.
Or if you're like, okay, my budget is 130 quid, I want the standard one, but I want the upgrades, I can't afford the upgrades right now, I'll still send you the chanter.
Yeah.
You can then come back and go, right, okay, I'm now ready. I'm decided I want to stick with playing the pipes. I want to upgrade. Can you send me the mouthpiece and the sole? And go, cool. You pay me 55 quid including shipping. You screw the parts on, screw them on. Your chanter's fully upgraded, done.
There you are.
You know?
Yeah.
Sounds
It was
like the way
allowed-
forward for that
Yeah.
sort of.
For a semi-customizable, well, for a fully customizable product, it's a really nice way to make it semi-customizable, I think. And be able to hit a lot of markets, or a lot of people within the market.
It also means as well that if something goes wrong with an individual part, you don't have to replace the full part. Like if a top cracks, or something, or used to crack, I'd have to get them to send the full top back. I'd take the mouthpiece off it, I'd take the ferrule off it, I'd make the new part, put the parts on, send it back to you. There's all that process. Whereas if somebody, let's say, takes the top off, drops and dents the ferrule, they can go, ferrule's got a big dent in it. I go, so just screw it off, I'll send you a new one.
But a serviceable part all of a sudden.
Easy, you just take one part off, put it on, and then you've got a brand new part.
Nice.
Or they go, oh, this top, it fell off the table and the top snapped off it. I go, just unscrew that part, give me the wood, just get rid of the wooden part, and I'll just send you a wooden bit. Everything screws together, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I wonder if it then opens the door to like limited edition ones. Like I'm doing titanium soles this month only. I'm only doing 100 of them.
That'd be a good idea.
They'll all be numbered or engraved with my name on them or signed
It's like
for you.
Banton Frameworks who do the glasses in Glasgow. They make handmade glasses.
Oh, nice.
There's the podcast is up there, and
Only in Kilsyth.
yeah.
Kilsyth.
Yeah.
Kilsyth's tiny. I didn't even know there was like in Kilsyth.
Go,
Yeah.
A
go listen
shed
to
in
their
the back
podcast.
of-
It's so good.
The shed in the, I'm not exaggerating, shed in the back of a garden in Kilsyth, and it is like an engineering, like
It's literally a square.
specialist tooling. It's wicked.
But they get
amazing.
given like materials randomly, and they're like, "Oh, can only make like 5 glasses," but it's all limited edition. They go like that, gone.
Oh, I can imagine. But glasses is one of those things. It's like you don't need to find 100 customers. You just need to find
Yes.
5 customers who've got money,
Yeah.
and they'll buy it. Like that's your thing. And it's amazing how many people who have got disposable income that'll just go, yeah, I'll take it. I don't care what it is. I'll just buy it.
So I was having this exact conversation this morning. I did quite a bit of work for Untitled Motorcycle in the London edition. I've never done any work for San Francisco version. I'd love to.
You're gunning for that though, eh?
Yeah,
That'd be quite
I'm
good.
gunning for it. If he's listening, get in touch. Because I'd love to, because his bikes are amazing. But equally, Adam that runs the London side, his bikes are wicked. He specialises in some amazing BMW stuff, and he's kind of pushing his own brand of electric stuff now. He's got a real passion for electric motorbikes, as have I, and we're talking about it exactly this morning. We'd always not cut corners, but would consciously design stuff to be a bit cheaper to build because he's funding it out of his own pocket.
Yeah.
And he's found this event who's invited him to it, and I'm just taking on the contract to design the bike for it. And the event's like, they're selling helicopters and private jets. They just want him there with some motorbikes as well. Finding a customer's hard, whether you're finding a customer for one £18 book or one 25, 30 grand motorbike. It's still one customer.
Yep.
You just need to be in the right place.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing that I was thinking with the upgradability, and that's the kind of thing that with Bantam Frameworks, and the customers are out there.
Oh yeah, yeah. It can be disheartening because if you think about it, if you go from making 10 sales at 150 quid, could you make one sale at 1,500?
Yeah.
Why not? It's because then I think that's where it comes into the part where people are like, you need to make your stuff more expensive. But then I'm like, well, if I can cover the majority of the range and be inside a certain deviation, then I know I'm covering the people who want to play the stuff and can afford it, as opposed to the people who money's not an issue and they'll just buy anything.
But that's where the world of the upgrades, and that's kind of what got my head ticking about it, with you saying doing it modular. It's like the upgrades are there, and it sounds like your customers, the brand loyalty is there.
Yeah,
And
I
they'll
mean,
be like,
I'll
"Oh,
get
he's
people
releasing
come back
something."
and they'll be like, oh, this is my 4th one. Like, why are you buying 4 chanters? Like, I'm not arguing. And my phone is like, oh, that's great. But in my head, I'm like, why? Why are you buying 4 chanters? What are you doing before? But some people are like, they'll have like one in their bathroom, one in their kitchen, or they've got them in their cave. They just pick it up. They don't care. I mean, if that's the thing is though, like, if that's what you want to spend your money on, there's way worse things to spend your money on. I mean, like, if you're a crackhead and you're spending that money on crack, then like, you do you. It's fine, man. Like, whatever. Like, I'm not interested in that.
They
But
do not just get different colours.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they usually
That's
they
what
get
I've
different
done.
colours. Yeah, they get different colours, and then they'll get like different upgrades and stuff. So, but people they'll buy one for them, or like a partner or something, or a son or daughter, and then and then they end up buying one for themselves, and then they buy, and then somebody else in the family plays pipes, and then they buy one for them. So you'll get the same people coming back like 2 or 3 times, which is kind of unusual in piping, because usually it's like you buy and then you're done.
It's a heritage product. Like you buy one and it's almost like a pass me down product.
Well, my grandpa was a bagpiper, and he made a chanter. It's the one that Dad's got. What was it made out of?
It's a copper one.
Really heavy.
Nice.
It's an ornament now.
Yeah.
Like, it's an ornament.
That's cool.
Kate's dad was a tool maker.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I think it's a chanter made out of stuff that fitted in his pocket.
Yeah.
And turned up at work and like keeps slipping bits in.
One piece at a time, Johnny Cash.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
It's heavy.
Yeah, it is. It's a lump.
Yeah.
It's a proper lump.
But yeah, it is.
But it's sat there forever.
I had a guy do that. He bought a chanter. He was too old to play. And he's like, I don't play anymore, but it's just so pretty. I want to put it on my mantelpiece as an ornament. Yeah. And it was a standard yellow. That was about 6 years ago. And he's like, never going to play it. I just want to have it to look at because it looks so beautiful. I was like, oh, okay. If it's going to pay my rent this month, then like, I'll do whatever you want, man. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
So what's next? We've talked about getting that lower price point product. Obviously, machinery. That's
well, they
that's
are
not
there.
next,
They're just
that's
out of stock.
constant,
Yeah, so they're just not been in stock for about a year. So they are there.
Is there something that fills the higher tier bracket that you're looking into?
For practice chanters, you're kind of capped, to be honest. But the next thing is small pipes, which is something I've been working on in the background. Getting the new pieces of machinery will help a lot with, because there's lots of like unusual shaped parts.
Right.
Like it's not all turning. There's things that you need to make certain individual parts. It's like bellows need to be made. So I need to learn how to make bellows. Because the small pipes, the ones I'll be making are bellows plates. So the bellows go under your right arm, and then the pipes go under your left, and you play them with bellows. So you could be talking right now and playing the pipes at the same time. So they're smaller and they come across your chest. Which is what I used to do. That's what was my job in my first bagpipe maker, was making small pipes.
Right.
And it's one of those things that people I've got people who have like already placed orders, and they say, don't care how long it's going to take. When you've got a set ready, I want to buy them. Done.
Nice.
So there is people, but there's more money in them. For instance, like a practice channel, let's say your average price is 150. For a set of small pipes, it's like 1,500.
Right.
So there's more work that goes into them, but I'll do a good job, and I know that I'll make a product that folk will go, oh, these are good.
Yeah.
You know,
it doesn't sound like you would do anything subpar.
And to be honest, even if they were shite to begin with, they wouldn't be shite for long.
Yeah.
I would work on them until they were as good as I could physically make them, that were there, that folk could play and go, I could take these anywhere.
Yeah. You've definitely got and all makers are the same, but you've definitely got a very attractive tenacity about this product range. Like I fully believe that even if the first one was a bit meh, it would not be like that.
And even if it was meh, you come back in 2 years and I'll take you from meh to meh.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
I'm sure we wouldn't look at it and be like, that's meh. You know?
Yeah.
No, I know we wouldn't, but like we wouldn't, but you as a professional player, you've set very high standards for yourself.
I think you have to as well. I mean, not even, but it's start making an instrument from scratch is really tough. I mean, it's one thing just taking somebody else's and copying it and just being like, you know, like we were talking about earlier on, but starting from being like, I'm not going to copy anybody. I'm just going to, or at least you have a starting point, and then be like, right, we'll go and we'll see where we can try and move things to try and make them different. Because there's no point in copying, because then you're just doing what that person does, and they'll always do it better than you.
Yep.
So you try and start somewhere or thereabouts, and then go, right, okay, and don't look for influence. Just try something,
Just do.
see how it goes, and then tweak it. And if the tweak ends up leading you in the same kind of direction, you at least know it's an organic tweak, as opposed to being like manufacturing it purposely to be exactly like another product, which I feel like it's a really short way of doing it. Again, it might be the whole A to B, and I'll end up going A, C, D, E, F, G, all the way around and ending
But
up a B8 anyway.
all.
But then at least I know that the product there is organic to me and to the
Yeah.
company, as opposed to just ripping somebody else off and just, trying to pass it off as, just a multicolored set of small pipes. But that's the next thing. But again, I'll need more machinery to do it. For instance, even just cutting the bellow and the bellow paddles, it kind of looks like a teardrop with the top cut off it. That needs to be done in a milling machine.
Right.
In fact, I bid on a milling machine a couple months ago on eBay, and I was like,
I love on eBay.
put the eBay in, and I was like, this thing looks good. And it was like 10 grand. And I was like, bid, boom, done. I was like, sweet. And then I was like, wonder how big that thing is. Check the sizes of it, check the back door, wouldn't even get in the workshop.
No way.
And I was like, please be outbid, please be outbid, please be outbid. So I'm watching it being like, outbid me, somebody outbid me. I was like, whoo, I could have been in the hole there for 10 grand, and that would have been an awkward one.
10 grand and another 12 grand to make bigger doors. in your workshop.
Honestly, see if I had, I would have just taken a Sawzall and I would have just cut the whole back door out and I'd have put it in and then just fixed it and been like, yeah, it is what it is. I would. That's what I'd done. I only
Been
worked
here
out.
long enough.
Yeah. So I think that's the next step will be to get that, but then by that I need to put a bigger workshop. So there's going to be a significant outlay needing to be put in. But I know with how busy I am just now, like I said, it's roughly about 8 weeks for a chanter.
Yeah.
If you're placing it now, and that's me basically running like full church. So and if I'm going to make small pipes, then I'm going to need that time from somewhere to come, and we'll go back to what we were talking about earlier on. Hiring somebody to train them is just too risky at this stage. From just being one person under you, I'd rather have the financial safety net and then bring somebody on and then have the time to spend with them.
Yeah, being able to have that safety net so that you can spend the time with them, so that their return to the business and your return to them is exponentially better.
Yeah,
because it's sensible.
Yeah, the goal for me, and it always was to have effectively like a small group of assassins, like guys who are really good at what they do, get paid really well, and enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. Like having
ideal.
like 5 guys who are just like really good at what they do, and they just get it done, and I can pay them a decent wage.
Yeah.
And at the end of the month, I'm like, we've got money left over that we can either grow. These guys are happy. There's nobody being like turning up and being like, oh, I don't get paid enough, so I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
Or people having to worrying about their like electricity bills and stuff like that. That's the ultimate goal, is where I want to get to. I want to get people that I can grow into the company and that they enjoy doing what they're doing, and just working with people like that. But it's going to take a time to get to that stage. And I think obviously the first step is hiring people, but it seems like it's an easy box to tick when I don't think it's the right box to tick at this stage.
And that's quite sensible.
Yep.
Like, although it does seem an easy box to tick, it's the easiest box. It shouldn't always be the first box to tick, because you need to have that background.
Yeah.
Do you think that want to hire people, when you've mentioned it a few times now, to pay a good wage and have people enjoy it, was that always there, and did that stem from your first job in pipe making?
I think so. I mean, I've never asked myself the question, but I know how stressful it is when you're doing something that, like, when I left my last job, I was like, I hate this. I'm never making another set of pipes again. But I come in here and I'll do 12-hour shifts and be like, I need to go home now.
Yeah.
And I'm probably working twice as much for half the pay.
Yeah.
But I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, there's something in this. Whereas, I mean, people say, what is the question folk are asking? They'll be like, would you rather be 50% happier or make 10% more? And most people are like, I'd rather be 50% happier. So I don't think I'd want people to have that issue where they're worried about how much money they're making. I mean, obviously you'll get people that always want more and more and more. But if they do want to make more, I want to be able to be in a position where they can grow into making more. Let's say if I've got like a 10 tier system and I start you at the bottom, I'm like, right, we're going to make some teas and coffees, right? That's a good cup of tea. Okay, you get your first take. The next one is, I'm going to show you how to set up the CNC machine.
Yeah.
If you can do that, I'm going to pay you an extra 50p an hour.
Yeah.
So if you get to tier 7, let's say, and you're like, I want to make more money, you go, okay, you can now start to do what I'm doing. If you're not able to do that, then you're not going to progress. You can start to take other jobs on, and you can then tier people accordingly on their skill base. If somebody wants to make more money, then I'll teach you how to make more money inside the business. Because if you can give me a job done that's worth more money than what you're doing, then I'll pay you for that job.
Yeah.
Well, this is it. If you get to the point where you're doing small pipes and stuff, and it's someone's wicked good at making chanters, they can pump them out as good as you pump them out, and you're like, and they want more, but it's like, well, the next step is you come and help me make the small pipes,
Or
you
you
prototype stuff for me,
or you can help. I'll show you how to finish them. I'll show you how to get the finish, and I'll show you that last 10%. Because then, if I'm giving you that last 10%, then and you're good at it, and I can say you're good enough to do that, then I can then take that time to do something else, whether it's start a new project, or whether it's doing like pipe chanters, or whether it's growing the business, where it's spending time doing like videography stuff like you guys are talking about, other things that are growing the business. They can be doing that. You know, and I want somewhere for people to go, even if it is only a small team of guys. It just gives that gives you more diversity as well. Like if I've got 5 pieces of machinery and there's one guy who's really good at one piece, and these other guys, if that guy's off and he's the engraver, well, who does the engraving?
Exactly.
Yeah, you phone in all your customers that want engraving and say, sorry, he's got...
Yeah, he's ill. Yeah, he's ill. He's off for 6 months. Yeah. So I now need to train somebody else in engraver. But somebody's like, okay, I'm making 12 quid an hour. How can I make more money? Right, I'm going to teach you how to use engraver. I'm going to set you up with it. I'm going to put you through an exam. If you pass that, I'll give you an extra £1 an hour, 50p an hour, whatever. Yeah. Because then I now know you're now an asset that I can then put onto that machine if he's not here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you've then got that diversity where that person's now worth more money to you than somebody sweeping. Because there's no point in having...
And worth more to themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it gives them somewhere to go. And then you don't need to be a manager. You don't need to be the business owner. Because like I said, that first job I was in, I was one of 50. And between me and the business owner, I was only 3 places removed. Yeah. I'm never going anywhere. Yeah. You know, whereas if you've got somebody who's sweeping the floor for 8 quid an hour, and then you go, right, okay, I'm going to show you how to do this, or I'll show you how to cut these pieces of wood into billets. To me, that needs to be done, and it needs to be done properly. I'll show you how to do it, and that's worth an extra £1 an hour to you. You do it properly, you're good. If you can't do that, then you're only ever going to be a shop sweeper, and this will probably be as far as you can go. Yeah, you know, and it'll be also a way of weeding people out, because if you'll get to a point where they stop, and if they're quite happy staying there, then fine, I don't need to pay you anymore. But if you want to keep progressing, I'll pay you more, but you need to show me that you've got the skills, that you're worth more to me. Yeah. And then basically it's up to you where you'd want to stop inside that. Yeah, you know.
It's a nice ethos. It's a nice ethos behind the bigger picture than just the making. Yeah, you know, to
business.
Yeah, yeah, to do the business side, and to have the foresight to not only want to build beautiful products, but to build a beautiful community within your workshop that want to build the product as well as you do.
I mean, if I could take on guys who are like me, who are like you guys, especially yourself, especially when you're in school, going like, I want to make furniture, and they're like, yeah, do you though? You sure you don't want to just like sit in an office and like be a lawyer or a doctor, or you know push pens around? You're like, nah, I think I'd rather get my hands dirty and inhale sawdust, and you know. If I can get those guys that are like, this is what I want to do, and then give somebody a career out of it and not just a stepping stone into something else, because it wasn't the plan, but it was just a stepping stone to me being like, I can do this, I can do better. But then again, you've then got that to worry about, that you've got guys that are too good. If there's a slip up, they go, I'm then breeding another me, and they go, yeah, you've now taught me everything I need to know. Bye. Actually, I'm now gonna go against it, but
yeah, always a worry. But if you build, I'd like to think, if you build a good enough company and good enough guys around you that trust and respect you, and that want to build it with you, that are passionate, is that really a worry? Do you know, if they guys are like, I don't want to go and do my own thing, I want, or maybe they want to become partner, you know, or maybe they want to buy in and become part of it with you, because ultimately you'd like to think that you are, and this is where the safety net is quite good, because it allows you to be the nicer boss, because there's the less stress involved, where you're then building that community and that loyalty ultimately, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's because it's not nice when you're on the breadline trying to figure things out and trying to spin plates. So I'd rather I'm way more proactive and confident in my moves when I've got money in the bank than I am when I'm skint. And because you become reclusive, because you're like, you've got no safety net to take risks. You know, if something goes wrong, you go, I've got nothing here to back me up. Whereas you've got a bit of money there, you can be like, something's like, money will fix most things in terms of like making a bad decision in business. You know, you're better to try and make the attempt and fuck up and then fix the fuck up than just not to make the attempt at all. You know, which is easier said than done, because it's a lot easier said than done.
Always is.
One of the old boys that Laughwell, one of the old boys that worked in one of the workshops when I was doing a lot of design work once said to me, he's like, just remember, I was, you know, just starting out at the time, and it was the classic workshop making digs at the design engineer. And Lathwell said to me, just remember, son, the one that never fucked up done fuck all.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah,
aye, absolutely right.
100%.
And
Yeah.
that stuck with me for forever. And now I'd like to think I'm pretty good at what I do. And it's because I made a lot of mistakes.
You have to, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to.
Okay. Your moment of honour.
Oh yeah. So the last question: how long have we gone for? 3
I
hours.
actually just burst the 3 hour mark.
Really?
Which makes it
Wow,
the
that's-
longest one.
Oh, really? I told you I can talk.
It makes it not only the longest one, but I think the closest one to home. And obviously, you just messaged us the other day, and we were like, "Oh shit, we've got a free day." Like I never have a free Friday.
I wasn't even
week.
prompted either, because you were like, what day works for you? And I was like, well, I can do any day. Like, just let me know. And I was like, do you know what, Friday, end of the week, I'll just close the workshop early and we'll get it done. Because I was having a beer. I think I went for a run in the park. And then I was like, do you know what, I'll stop for a beer at West. You can come for a beer at West if you want after.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just going through my pictures, and then one of your stuff popped up. And I was like, their stuff's actually really nice. Because I'd been following you guys for a minute. And then I was like, I'll put this post up and I'll tag you in it. And within like 30 seconds, you were like, boom, love your stuff. Do you want to do a podcast?
That's sweet.
I was like, wow, that was quick.
Wicked good at Instagram.
Yeah,
There is-
quick.
I don't miss much.
yeah,
Try
I
not
don't
to.
think there's an opportunity on Instagram that's been missed.
I'll be there at midnight, being like,
Yeah.
oh, because I'm talking to everyone like from across the globe, and everyone's at different time
Oh,
zones.
yeah,
So
100%.
my phone's always pinging, and I'm like, if I don't reply to them now, it'll be the next day or the next day.
And something else will happen in the morning that'll take away from that, and then
Yeah.
you'll forget to. You're so on it with that, and so prompt. We got an iPad the other day, a 12.9-inch one, and it's like Instagram on widescreens, wicked.
Do you actually get it? Because
Yeah.
I've got Instagram on my iPad. It's crap.
So you need to download it as the iPhone app, and then you can full screen it, and it just goes boop. And
Did
it's so
did
good.
you guys jump on Digital Boost yet?
No, what's that?
We'll talk about this over a pint. Digital Boost, good.
Yeah?
It's a grant from the government to give you like money towards like all this stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really good.
Well, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Well, my last question is, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, there we go. What advice would I give younger self? Probably be that trust the decision that you want to make, because more often than not, it's going to be the right one. I think is probably it.
And what do you mean want to make? What just feels the right decision?
You know, for instance, like I want to move workshop right now, but there's so much stuff that comes along with moving workshop that it can be daunting that you go, I want to, but should I? But I know for a fact that when I do move for the workshop and I do move things on, I'll go, should have done this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Right,
You know,
right.
and I'll look at this, like even when I started the business, at the time I was like, I want to do this. And when I was standing here having quit my job, like I was like, I want to do this, but I'd already made the decision to do it. And now looking back on it, I'm like, whew, I'm glad I made that decision, because it was 100% the right decision.
Right.
And you just have to trust the process that comes along with it. Just trust that, like I said, we were saying a minute ago, you're better to try and fix the fuck up than to never fuck up at all.
Yeah.
You know, because most things can be fixed. Like if you make a real mistake, most things you can fix them. You're better just to make the decision, get it done with, and then when that problem arises, if it ever does, then fix it. As opposed to just going, what if? I'll just not do it then.
Yeah.
Because then you never go anywhere. And I've noticed that last couple of years that if you're not actively doing new things, you end up just doing, and it's amazing actually. See, if I don't do anything, if I'm just turning up day in, day out, my turnover is basically the same within like £1,000. If I don't do anything. And I instantly notice when I do change that it'll change. It's a knock-on effect. Like just for instance, like when it was just chanters, nothing else, you'd be a certain amount. Then I added the cases and then it took another bump. And then you would do something else, like maybe upgrade your website, then it'll
That
bump
immediate
again.
feedback.
You can
Yeah.
see it. You can see it in the figures. And you can see by doing these things that it makes a difference. And then maybe 1 year you'll go, you've done this, and then you haven't done anything. And then it goes, it's exactly the same amount. Or it'll actually drop back. And then you go, hang on a minute, why has that happened? So you kind of have to be pushing things on. But again, you have to be brave and crack on. Because it's like perseverance, like everything's scary. Like everything that you want to do is scary because it's the unknown. You've never done it before. So, and it's not as if you're doing something that's easily passed over. Like, this is my livelihood.
Yeah.
If I make a mess of this, it's not just this. I've got my wife as well.
Yeah.
You know, so if everything goes tits up, then you're like, but then you just have to look at it and go, just trust the decision that you want to do. Trust it and fix it if it goes wrong. If it doesn't go wrong, great. Something will go wrong. But just trust the decision that you want to make and know that it's the right one, I think.
That's a good one.
Good
That's a good one to close on.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Good.
The only time I'll thank someone for sliding in my wife's DMs.
Good to know.
But mate, it's been wicked. It's been wicked to see what you've done. It's been wicked to actually just like hold one of your chanters in the hand
get a picture
and get an idea of the weight and what it is about and what you're all about as well. And I do think you should do more of showing who you are.
Yep. Okay.
And showing the sort of process behind this, because I actually think it's a bit different for me because I've got a bit of a background in machinery and I know what I'm looking at. But like just seeing some of the machinery here and then hearing that the products are priced at what they're priced at is wild. And I think it's what you've got going is brilliant. I think you've got a really good ethos towards it all. I wish you all the best of luck. I hope we're sat here in 12 months, 18 months time. Well, sat in a new workshop, 12 months, 18 months time. Big milling machine going.
That'd be good.
Little pipes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it's coming in closer. It's been sitting on it for a while, and I need to pull the trigger on this. So I think it's going to be the next step. We'll see how the economy goes over the next couple of months, but as long as I think we'll be all right. It'll be good. Looking forward to it.
Good.
Mate, thanks so much. Really
Thank you very much.
it.
I've enjoyed this. Thanks, guys.